Legends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving even deeper into the epic What If Deku Had the Sharingan. Part 2. Fire, the stakes are rising, and the action is getting intense. Huge shout out to the amazing Mr. Author 18 for bringing this incredible story to life. Go show them some love for their creativity. Before we jump in, let's hit a like goal of 150 likes for the next part. Smash that like button, drop your theories in the comments, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to join the Legend Squad for more awesome anime what-ifs. Alright, Legends, let's make it unforgettable. Chapter 6. The Quirk Assessment Test. Alright, demonstration is over. The real thing starts now. Test 1. 50-meter dash. The first test was the 50-meter dash. Two students will line up and race each other at a time. A camera-like computer machine will read and measure each student's time. The first two students lined up ready to race are Tenya Ida and a green-haired girl with features similar to that of a frog. On your mark, get set. Then the machine made the sound of a gunshot signaling the beginning of the race. Tenya blasted off and was the first one to finish the race. 3.04 seconds. The computer announced as soon as Tenya passed the finish line. Shortly after, the frog-like girl was able to cross the finish line as well. For 50 meters, I can only go up to third gear. Tenya thought. Name, Tenya Ida. Quirk. Engine. He has engines in his calves which allows him to move at super high speeds. Well, he's like a fish in water. He's certainly in his element. However, speed isn't the only attribute that is essential for a pro hero. It'll be worth seeing what others do, Aizawa said in his mind. Name, Tsuyu. Quirk. Frogwell, the name speaks for itself. She can do whatever a frog can. Tsuyu's 50-meter dash time was recorded as 5.58 seconds, which is not too shabby. Lighten up my clothes and shoes, she said to herself, as she reduced the weight of her clothes using her quirk. Name, Achiko Uraraka. Quirk. Zero gravity. Anything she touches will become weightless, and she will have absolute control over it. However, her drawback is that if she overuses her quirk, she will begin to become nauseous. I have to give it my all today. Midoriya and I promised each other to reach the top together, so I need to avoid expulsion at all costs, Ojiro said in his mind as he prepared himself for the race. The machine made the gunshot sound as Achiko and Ojiro began to race. Ojiro crossed the finish line in 5.0 seconds, while Achiko did so in 7.15 seconds. Not bad, Ojiro, not bad at all, Izuku murmured with a smirk before his and Ojiro's eyes met. This was going to be yet another one of their competitions. Humph. Everyone, you're not being creative enough. I'll show you what it's like to be allowed to use your quirk, a blonde French kid said. Name, Yuga Aoyama. Quirk. Naval laser. He can shoot a laser from his belly button, but he's limited by the amount of time he can shoot continuously. 5.51 seconds. If I shoot for more than a second, I get a stomachache, Aoyama pointed out. What the heck? Thought the various students of Class 1A, as they thought that his quirk's drawback was pretty weird. Looking at the upper limit of your quirks and the room for growth in each result, it becomes clear what you can and can't do, Aizawa thought before he looked at the last two students who were getting ready to race. They were none other than Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. On your mark. Bakugo looked to his right and said, try not to fall too far behind me, Deku. Get set. Oh, we'll see about that, Kakin, Izuku said in his mind with a smirk appearing on his face. He decided to activate his Sharingan and use 8% of one for all in his right foot. He was going to boost himself and give himself a push before running with his pure physical strength. That will connect to the creativity needed for you to survive, Aizawa thought as the gunshot sound went off and both students blasted off. Explosive speed, Bakugo shouted as he ignited his hands with explosives that allowed him to get a boost of speed. 4.10 seconds. Bakugo grew angry as he saw Izuku taking the lead thanks to the boost he got earlier. During this whole race, he was just trying to catch up to him, which contradicts what he told Izuku before the race. 4.13 seconds. Bakugo finished the race slightly after Izuku. Damn it! How did he get ahead of me? Bakugo angrily thought. I have to use both the Sharingan and one for all at the same time so that no one suspects that I have two quirks, Izuku mentally thought as he looked at his hand. I managed to increase my control of one for all up to 8% during the month between the exam and the school's first day. But I still have a long way to go. He looked at his score before his eyes drifted to Ojiro, who complimented his friend by giving him a thumbs up, which Izuku returned too. They were going to push themselves to do better and better. Test 2, Grip Strength. Izuku proceeded to reactivate his Sharingan and won for all at 8% in his right hand, before grabbing the object. He was surprised to see that his grip strength was 175 kilograms, placing him in second place after the tentacles guy named Shoji. He's holding back, Aizawa thought to himself. This definitely wasn't the power Izuku showed during the practical exam. But Aizawa also didn't understand how Izuku got super strength. He didn't have it last year when he came to UA. Ojiro came at 4th place. He used both his hand and tail, giving him a grip strength of 150 kilograms, placing him after a tall girl with a ponytail that created a special device to help increase her grip strength for the test. So far, I can say we're doing a great job, Ojiro exclaimed, snapping Izuku out of his gaze. Huh? Yeah, we're doing so well. If we keep up the good work, we won't risk expulsion. Izuku replied. Is something wrong? You seem troubled. Ojiro commented as it seems like Izuku had something on his mind. Ah, nothing to worry about. Izuku replied. Why are they using their quirks like that? Izuku said in his mind. Test 3. Standing long jump. Izuku activated his Sharingan and started to run at full speed. Just as he was about to jump, he activated 8% in 1 foot and jumped, giving him a decent score. Bakugo was happy that he managed to beat Izuku in that test. He and a few students were able to clear the entire sandbox thanks to their quirks. I still don't understand. They're using their quirks differently, Izuku noted as he observed many students with his Sharingan. Test 4, Repeated Side Steps. Izuku decided not to use his quirks for this test. He didn't really need to. The last person to go was Mineta, and he was the only one to get a higher score than Izuku. He used the purple balls placed on his head to bounce him back and forth with little to no effort. Something is off, Izuku thought. I can see with my Sharingan that everyone is using their quirks, not like an on and off switch. They're channeling the blue energy of their quirk through their entire body. Izuku began to solve the problem that has been troubling him ever since the test started. But that means that everything I've been doing till now is wrong. It means that I haven't been using one for all correctly all along. Flashback, Detroit Smash. Izuku shouted as he hit the punching bag All Might brought him. Alright, that's it for today, All Might said. Izuku had just finished his training at Dogoba Beach. His control over One for All had improved from 3% to 5%, but he thought that something was still off. He didn't know how to put it, but despite having the power of All Might, he didn't feel like he was All Might. His initial thought was that it was due to his lack of control. However, he felt that there's another trick to it. All Might, Izuku called his mentor, grabbing his attention. Is there a special trick when it comes to controlling One for All? He asked. The trick to controlling One for All. All Might put his hand on his chin and began to think about it. Well, it's feeling, All Might dramatically shouted. Wow, that's All Might for you. Izuku shot back in enthusiasm. You've already pulled out the 100%. All Might said, remembering his successor's performance. It destroyed me, though, Izuku replied. But now that you have it, it'll be easy. You should have already grasped the feeling. What was it like? All Might asked. Izuku began to think about it. He had stopped thinking about the feeling ever since he discovered that he's able to see One for All in his body. He was really surprised that day. It was weird, but he deduced that his enhanced perception made him now able to see this blue energy in his body or whatever it is. And upon looking at other people, he discovered that other people had it too. He further deduced that people use this energy to use their quirks. After all, it was the same thing with One for All. He was able to see the energy of One for All flowing in his muscles and make sure that he wasn't using 100%, thus not breaking his bones. Shortly after, he finally remembered the feeling. It was like BZZT or a whoosh. Izuku said, and seeing the puzzled look on All Might's face, he tried to be more specific. I know, like an egg put in a microwave. Hearing this, All Might burst out laughing and blood came out of his mouth. That's boring but unique, If that's the image you have, then lower the wattage or shorten the cooking time. Anything's fine. Just focus on the image of the egg not exploding. The image? Izuku repeated as he found a piece of the puzzle he was trying to solve. You have 3 weeks until school starts. Keep focusing on that image. It won't happen overnight, but I'm sure you will be able to control one for all more fluently someday. At some point, it'll even be as easy as breathing. Back to the present. So, during the month between the entrance exam and the first day, Izuku learned more and more about both quirks. He learned that with his Sharingan, he could faintly see a blue energy that grew and moved whenever people used their quirks, and that he had to grasp a certain feeling in order to fluently control one for all. However, unlike him, the students were using this energy in an entirely different way, and he couldn't help but find it really odd. Could this be the final piece of the puzzle I have been looking for? Maybe if I channel my blue energy like them and slightly change the image I have in mind, I might be finally able to fluently control one for all. Test 5, Ball Throw. I wonder why Midoriya isn't using the super strength he displayed during the entrance exam? Tenya asked, curious why Izuku was holding back, especially after Aizawa's threat. Huh? What do you mean by super strength? That pitiful nerd is weak as fuck, Bakugo replied. I'm sure all he did was some training and martial arts or something. There's no way Deku could ever get a strong quirk, he added with his usual violent tone. You're wrong, you didn't see him when he destroyed the zero-pointer with one punch. He was truly amazing, Tenya replied while Bakugo scoffed. Tenya clearly remembered that day, and until now, he is still amazed by the display of strength Izuku put during the exam. Yeah, I heard about the rumors that someone from Battle Center B destroyed the zero-pointer with one punch, not to mention he got first place on the entrance exam, so let's not underestimate him, a red-haired boy added. Meanwhile, Izuku went to his designated spot, activated his Sharingan, and charged his arm with 8% of one for all. But before he could throw the ball, he saw from the corner of his eyes Aizawa using his capture weapon to bind him, so he dodged the attack. I see you're still quick on your feet, Midoriya, Aizawa said in a monotone voice. Come with me for a second. Everyone was in awe at Izuku's reflexes. It's like he predicted his attack, Tenya shouted. He thought that unless his quirk was super speed, there was no way he could have dodged the attack that easily. He had to admit, if he was in Izuku's shoes, he wouldn't have been able to dodge the attack. But isn't Izuku's quirk some kind of super strength? But Aizawa-sensei doesn't seem impressed. I don't think it's their first time meeting, Karo, Tsuyu exclaimed as she put a finger on her chin. Now that I think of it, Midoriya did recognize Aizawa-sensei immediately. Tenya replied as he recalled the events that happened earlier. Class A then began to make assumptions and try to guess how the student-teacher duo knew each other. One of them even suggested that Izuku might be Aizawa's secret love child. I wonder who suggested that. Why are you holding back? Aizawa asked. What do you mean? Izuku replied with another question, confused by what Aizawa meant. Why are you not using the same power you used to destroy the zero-pointer or something even close to it? Are you half-assing my test thinking that I won't expel you because we're acquainted? Aizawa sternly said. No, it's not like that, not at all, sensei, Izuku said as he waved his arms in defense. It's just that I discovered this new part of my quirk on the day of the exam, and I can't use it to the maximum, or I'll break my bones, just like the day of the exam, he added, fully explaining the situation. Aizawa let out a sigh, understanding Izuku's situation. That makes sense considering that super strength wasn't your thing last time we met. Fine, given you only discovered your quirk last year, I can't expel you, and as your teacher, I can't ask you to break your bones and end up incapacitated. However, you must know that in the future, dire situations will require you to use your maximum. It's part of the job of being a pro hero. I won't pressure you, but you better learn how to properly control your power soon instead of being a glass cannon, or I'll expel you. I have high expectations for you, so don't disappoint me. He then gave Izuku another ball to retry the test. You can throw however you want, but consider what I said to be your first lesson. Izuku went back to redo the ball throw test, thinking about Aizawa's words. He's right, I have to learn how to fully control one for all soon. I cannot use the control excuse forever. I have to work harder than everyone to become the #1 hero. But until then, it's likely that I would face some situations that will require my full power, and I'll have a maximum of 2 punches before I'm entirely useless. I need to find another way to use my full power and stay in a fight. Deku seems in deep thought. Achiko commented, to which Tenya nodded. Whatever Aizawa-sensei told him, it must have been serious. Tenya added, "You're just a pebble, Deku. There's no way you'll beat someone like me." Bakugo said in his mind as he observed Izuku. Suddenly, an idea popped out in Izuku's head. If he wants to see a power remotely close to what I showed during the entrance exam and limiting the risk of injury, I guess I could give it a try. Music. My Hero Academia OST Yusei Run. Until now, I didn't get any limit-breaking score, and all that's left is the long-distance run, sit-ups, and the seated toe touch. It's now or never. I won't lose the first place I worked so hard to get. I'm All Might's successor after all, so I can't accept this. I have to live up to his expectations. It's about time. Aizawa murmured as he could clearly see Izuku's sheer determination in his Sharingan. Izuku, you're really cool. Inko's voice came to Izuku's head. You can become a hero. All Might's voice came to his head. I'll definitely become the greatest hero. He shouted in his mind, and everyone was able to feel the rising tension in the air. Izuku then gripped the ball nice and hard and prepared to throw it. Meanwhile, All Might was hiding at a corner and watching his successor, but then he saw what was he about to do. Hey, is he serious? The Sharingan user charged 100% of 1 for all in his index finger, as the energy was coursing through his veins. However, just as this was happening, the blue energy grew more intense and changed from blue to cyan. He then threw the ball, pushing it at the end with his index, breaking it, and then yelling with all his might, "Smash!" The ball launched into the air so fast that it broke the sound barrier, creating gusts of winds one after the other. All of the students were knocked off their feet, and many of them quickly closed their eyes and covered their ears, desperately trying to shield their eyes from the dust and protect their ears from the sound. There was even a purple-haired girl who screamed in agony because of how loud the sound was. It doesn't hurt as much as before. No, wait, it hurts even more. Izuku thought, as for some reason the pain was even more unbearable than last time. It didn't make any sense to him. He didn't know why, but he knew he had to stand tall. He then turned his attention to Aizawa and closed his fist. "Aizawa-sensei, I can still move," Izuku said, looking at Aizawa, with a victory look in his eyes and a smirk. Music ends. However, he was surprised to see Aizawa covering his ears and in pain. Izuku then looked at the class to find the mess he created. Aha! I killed half of my class during my first day at UA. Izuku comically panicked as his eyes bulged from their sockets. After a few moments, the class recovered and pulled themselves together. Aizawa immediately sent the purple-haired girl to the infirmary because her ears were bleeding while the others still had a hard time hearing anything, including Izuku himself. Shortly after, they finally began to process what just happened. Aizawa just groaned before saying, "It seems like you always find a way to surpass my expectations, kid." He then held up his phone as it read 1200 meters, and immediately all of the Class 1A's students' jaws dropped. "Congratulations! You earned the title of Problem Child. For God's sake, I already suffer from dry eyes. Don't go and make me deaf too." Aizawa added, 1,200 meters. That's crazy. The red-haired boy yelled while trying to pick up his jaw from the floor. Oi! How are we supposed to compete with that? A yellow-haired boy asked with visible shock in his voice. Izuku Midoriya, huh? Looks like you'll be more troublesome than I initially thought. A certain bicolor-haired teen murmured to himself. Yes, this is it. This is the power he displayed during the exam. Achiko cheered as she jumped in her place. Incredible. His power never fails to amaze me. Tenya said while nodding to Achiko's statement and agreeing with her. No, this power is even stronger than the one he used during the entrance exam, he shouted. However, his finger is swollen. He broke his arm and legs during the entrance exam as well. His quirk is really powerful, but it is also very strange. Tenya added with his finger resting on his chin as he pondered about Izuku's abilities and his unique powers. I came because I was worried, but what the heck? Young man, You still can't control 100% of one for all, but you also couldn't become incapacitated. So, you propelled the ball at the last point of contact by sending the power of one for all to just your finger, minimizing the injury while maximizing the power. What the heck? Young man, you're so cool. All Might screamed in his head, thinking how cool his successor is, but then his expression turned into shock. But young Midoriya, what the hell is this power? It might be as strong as the power I once had during my prime. What's with that power? Everyone's quirks manifest by the age of 4. It's already unthinkable that his quirk manifested last year, let alone becoming this powerful in a short amount of time. Bakugo thought. He was furious. To think that Deku's power was strong enough to knock him off his feet. What is the meaning of this? Hey, tell me what's going on. DKU. You bastard. Bakugo roared as he charged at Izuku with explosions in his hands, unable to contain his anger anymore. As he was charging, Aizawa used his capture weapon to bind him and erased his quirk. Try something like this again, and you'll be immediately expelled, Aizawa said. His eyes were red and his hair was rising and floating. I see. Those googles, you're the pro hero, Eraserhead, Izuku deduced after seeing Aizawa's quirk and putting 2 and 2 together. Eraser? I don't know him, one of the students questioned. I've heard of him. He's an underground hero, one of the students replied. In reality, the only reason Aizawa wasn't famous was his hate for the media. Yaoyorozu, create a bandage for Midoriya's finger. Midoriya, after the exam I'll give you a letter to go to Recovery Girl, Aizawa said, releasing Bakugo in the process. Izuku went back to stand beside his classmates, but when he did, some of them took a few steps away from him. They were definitely afraid of him. Midoriya, what was that? Ojiro asked his friend. This was unbelievable. Izuku just rubbed the back of his head and smiled sheepishly. I don't know. I just used the full extent of my quirk, and as you see, I got injured. But still, that was incredible. It was so manly. The red-haired kid told Izuku. Man, you threw the ball over 1 kilometer away. Sheesh, you're definitely something else. A yellow-haired teen added. Soon enough, many other students began to praise him, and Izuku couldn't help but blush and shrink under all this attention. For the first time in his life, Bakugo wasn't the one who was being praised, the one who everyone fawned over him. Normally, he wouldn't care, but the idea of Deku being the one who's getting all that praise and attention instead of him shook him to his core. When Achiko's turn came, she used her zero-gravity quirk on the ball and threw it as it kept on floating and floating until it became a twinkling star in the sky as it went into space. Aizawa showed what his phone read, and everybody was aghast to see that it read a pink infinity symbol. Infinity? Class 1A shouted. Guess I lost this one, and to think I had to break my finger. Izuku thought as he had a flat expression on his face, but he shook it off and smiled. Test 6. Sit-ups. Izuku and Ojiro destroyed this competition with their pure physical strength. Bakugo tried to keep up with them but lost them when they reached 100. Are you going to give up, Midoriya? Ojiro asked. No, I can still go on. Izuku replied. That's the spirit of youth. After seeing both boys not stopping even after 500 sit-ups and not wanting to waste any more time, Aizawa decided to end this in a draw, much to the two boys' dismay. Test 7. Seated toe touch. Due to Izuku's taekwondo training that required him to be flexible, he was able to ace that test, getting first place. Seeing this, the pink-skinned girl who placed second approached Midoriya and said, I've never met someone more flexible than me. I'm Mina Ashido. She then moved near his ear and whispered, maybe we can dance together and see how flexible you are, Midoriya. At that moment, Izuku's face became completely red and steam could be seen coming out of his ears. He began stuttering and waving his arms, which made Mina laugh. Test 8. Long distance run. After about half an hour, the only people that were still running around the field were Izuku, Ojiro, and Momo Yaoyorozu. Since Izuku's quirk, Sharingan, uses a lot of stamina, All Might made sure that Izuku had to run 10 kilometers every day in order to increase his quirk's time limit from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. That and his training with Kurogane Sensei pushed him to his absolute limits too. However, first place went to Momo, who created a bike and kept pedaling. However, She had to admit the two boys gave her a hard time. She almost dropped out and was really tired after this test. She was happy that it was the last one. After the end of the tests, Aizawa made his calculations before showing them their overall placements. Class 1A Quirk Assessment Test Results: 1. Izuku Midoriya. 2. Momo Yaoyorozu. 3. Shoto Todoroki. 4. Katsuki Bakugo. 5. Mashireo Ojiro.
6 Tanya Ida.
7. Fumikage Tokoyami. 8. Mizo Shoji. 9. Aijiro Kirishima.
10 Mina Ashido.
11. Achiko Uraraka.
12 Koizui. 13 Rikido Sato.
14. Tsuyu Ajui. 15. Yuga Aoyama. 16. Hantasiro. 17. Denki Kaminari. 18. Kyoka Jiro. 19. Toru Hagakure. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku was quite surprised to see his name at the top and ranking first, but he was happy. This gave him more confidence in himself and his abilities. Looks like you defeated me again, Midoriya. Seems like I have to improve more. I'm your rival after all, and I can't fall behind you, Ojiro exclaimed, willing to get stronger to catch up to his rival. Well, you did pretty good yourself. Look, you're at the top 5, Izuku exclaimed, trying to cheer up his friend. Almost there, Ojiro murmured. He was happy that the gap between them somewhat decreased. Meanwhile, Mineta's eyes began to tear up as he saw that he got the last place in the quirk assessment test. And no way, I'm getting expelled on the first day. But right before he started to sob fully, Aizawa cut him off. By the way, I was lying about the expulsion. No one is going home. Everyone in Class 1A, besides Momo, was speechless as their eyes were as wide as saucers. Aizawa smirked as he made his trademark freaky face. It was a rational deception to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. What? Class 1A yelled beside Momo as the rest of the class did not take kindly to being deceived so easily. Of course, that was a lie. It should have been obvious if you just thought it through. It's the first day of school, for crying out loud, Momo said. Bakugo just scoffed in annoyance, probably because he got 4th overall in the quirk assessment test and Izuku was number 1. Something that he had never even considered being possible, not even in a million years. With that, we're done here. There are handouts with the curriculum and such in the classroom, so when you get back, look over them. Aizawa then walked towards Izuku with a slip of paper in his hand. Midoriya, have the old lady fix you in the nurse's office. Tomorrow will be packed with even more rigorous tests. Prepare yourself, Aizawa said as he gave Izuku the slip of paper and walked away. Izuku looked at the slip of paper as he was immersed in his thoughts. I got through this for now. I may be strong, but there are still things that I can't do. I made it to first place, so I have a good head start. I just need to make sure I keep working harder than everyone. Aizawa, you liar. Oh, good morning, All Might. So, you were watching? You got too much time on your hands, Aizawa said as he passed by All Might when he was on his way back inside. A rational deception, you said? Haha, nice joke, but April Fool's was last week. You punished a whole class of last year's first years with expulsion. You cut those you judged to be without hesitation. For a man like that to take back his words, that must be because you also felt it too, right? Izuku Midoriya's incredible growth and potential, All Might bellowed as he pointed at Aizawa. Aizawa gained a suspicious look on his face as a smirk appeared on his face. Also, you seem to be supporting him quite a bit. Is it too far-fetched to say that maybe you have been giving young Midoriya a little favoritism? All Might widened his eyes as he realized his mistake. Crap. I need to be more careful with the way I speak about Izuku towards others. Is that how a teacher should be acting? Aizawa started to walk away, but he decided to say one last thing before he and All Might parted ways. It's true what you say. He does have an enormous amount of potential, probably the most potential a UA student has ever had, including you and Endeavor. Aizawa pointed out, making All Might flinch. So he noticed that too, but potential will only get you so far in this world. Execution is what matters. There are still many things he needs to learn for him to become a pro one. He needs to stop breaking his bones and control his quirk. A mistake like that could cost his or other people's lives if he's not careful. Also, It seems like he's using his quirk as an on and off switch, not as an extension of his body. I'll make sure to tell him this tomorrow during the hero basic training. I will always cut those without potential. There's nothing crueler than letting a dream end midway. That was the last thing he said before he walked off, leaving All Might to his own devices. All Might smiled as he heard Aizawa's harsh, but honest words. But then he thought about that last part, like an on and off switch. So, you're being kind in your own way, huh, Aizawa? All Might sighed. I guess we don't really get along after all. Classes were now over as the first day of UA High School for Izuku Midoriya ended. The students were leaving the front gates as they conversed with one another, speaking about how the first day went for them, how the classes and the teachers were, and whatnot. The first day of the school year always has the most energy, more than most of the days in the school year. I'm so tired, Izuku said as he walked out the main gates of UA, feeling very fatigued as he did. Ojiro had to leave early to train with Daisuke Sensei, so Izuku was walking all alone. Just then, a strong hand grabbed Izuku's right shoulder. He already knew who the person was since he got used to it by now. Izuku turned around and greeted them. Hey Ida, what's up? Is your finger healed? Tenya asked, concerned about his peer's health. Yeah, thanks to Recovery Girl, Izuku said as he showed Tenya his bandaged finger. Flashback. Nurse's office. Kiss. Recovery Girl kissed Izuku's broken finger as a green light illuminated it and healed it completely. Wow, it's healed. But I suddenly feel very tired. I need a nap, Izuku said as he instantly felt the fatigue kicking in. My quirk can only stimulate a person's healing ability. Healing requires stamina. If you keep getting major injuries, you'll use too much stamina and end up dying instead, so be careful, Recovery Girl said as she gave Izuku candy so that can he regain some energy. I'll end up dying instead? Izuku cried in horror. Izuku then noticed the purple-haired girl that he indirectly injured after his ball throw. Hey. Two just wanted to say that I'm so sorry for what happened during the test. I didn't mean to. He began as he started to repeatedly bow and mutter, still ashamed of himself. She got hurt because he couldn't control his quirk properly. However, the girl stopped him. It's fine. I'm all healed up now and you didn't know what my quirk was. Aizawa-sensei also seemed to have put a lot of pressure on you, so it can't be helped, she said as she opened the nurse's office door. See you tomorrow, Green. And with that, she left, leaving Izuku all alone. Green. Izuku questioned the nickname the girl gave him because she didn't know his name. Back to the present. I can't just keep getting help from others. I have to hurry up and learn to control and master one for all. No, I also have to awaken the second Tomo in my right eye, Izuku said mentally as he and Ida walked side by side. I was really taken in by Aizawa-sensei. I even thought, this is the best of the best and such. I didn't think a teacher would encourage us with a lie, but it seemed to have worked out in the end. Although, I don't understand how you two know each other, Ida said as he crossed his arms, curious about the relation between Izuku and Aizawa. Well, you can say I fought him last year, Izuku replied. You what? Tenya asked with visible shock. Was his classmate a villain or something before coming to UA? Yes, I fought him when my quirk manifested. He was helping Recovery Girl study my quirk, 'cause it's unique, Izuku replied, not mentioning All Might. I see. Tenya simply responded as he put a hand on his chin, processing what he just heard. I thought Ida was scary, but he's just earnest, Izuku thought as he was impressed by Tenya's diligence. Hey, you two, going to the station, right? Wait for me, Achiko shouted as she walked towards Izuku and Tenya. Uraraka. Oh, you're the Infinity Girl, Tenya said as Uraraka caught up with them. I'm Achiko Uraraka, she introduced herself. You're Tenya Ida, Achiko said as she pointed at Ida. And you're Deku Midoriya, right? Deku? Izuku asked with visible confusion. Huh? But during the fitness test, the boy named Bakugo said, Deku, you bastard, right? Achiko questioned while trying to imitate Bakugo. My real name is Izuku, but Deku is what Kaken calls me to make fun of me, Izuku said as he rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. An insult? Tenya questioned. Oh, is that right? I'm sorry, I didn't know. But Deku sounds like the Japanese word dikairu for you can do it. It has some sort of never give up vibe, so I kinda like it. DKU it is, Izuku said immediately with no hesitation as his face was bright red. What? But Midoriya, you're accepting it too easily. Wasn't that an insult? Tenya said as he was perplexed by the situation. It's like a Copernican revolution, Izuku mumbled as he hid his blushing face with his hands comically. Cope? Achiko asked confused as she didn't get the reference that Izuku was making. Midoriya, you mentioned that your quirk was unique, that even Recovery Girl was studying it. Can you tell us more about it? Tenya asked, curious about the Sharingan user's quirk. Well, it's called Sharingan. When I activate it, my eyes become red, with a black ring showing around my pupils. On my right eye's black ring, I have one tomo, but on the left one I have two, Izuku said, but both of them looked confused, so he activated it to show them. I see. And what powers does it give you? Tenya replied, interested in Izuku's quirk. It gives me the power to read my opponent's movements and predict them like I'm slightly seeing the future thanks to the increased perception it grants me. It also gives me the power to copy other people's fighting styles and techniques, making them my own. But my body must be physically able to do it. Also, it can boost my physical strength, but if I overdo it, I'll break my bones. That's all I know about it for now. Midoriya, that's amazing, Tenya exclaimed. Yes, Deku. Compared to you, our quirks are outmatched, Achiko added as she thought how amazing Izuku's quirk was. No, please don't say that. You guys have awesome quirks too. Although he said that, Izuku was happy that people thought his quirk is amazing, well, technically his quirks. But imagine envying him, the same kid who used to be quirkless a year ago. Pushing that aside, the group of three began to walk towards the train station, conversing on the way there. There are so many things I can't do yet. I have to work hard and do my best. This is only the beginning of my journey to become a hero. But All Might, I can at least be happy that I have friends, right? Izuku thought as he finally had people who he can call friends. It has been a while since he has socialized with his classmates or other people in his school. It made him feel happy that now his life was finally taking a step forward from the darkness and sadness it used to be. Meanwhile, in the teacher's lounge, All Might was sitting down as he stared at his hero costume, which was currently in his hands. You don't have time to relax, young man. The real thing starts tomorrow. Chapter 7. Izuku's resolve. Meanwhile, in the teacher's lounge, All Might was sitting down as he stared at his hero costume, which was currently in his hands. You don't have time to relax, young man. The real thing starts tomorrow. That night, my phone is ringing. I wonder who's calling me, Izuku said before getting up. He was currently in his room, finishing a push-up set. It's All Might. Hello, young Midoriya. How was your first day at school? All Might asked his protege. It was cool. I got first place in the quirk assessment test, Izuku replied while using a towel to wipe his sweat. That's my successor for you. Anyways, I want to meet you at Dogoba Beach. Right now. Yes, it's about one for all. Alright? I'll be there in a few minutes. Izuku ended the call and then went to take a shower and get ready to meet All Might. Dogoba Beach. Tashinora Sensei. All Might looked at the voice's owner and was glad to see Izuku, who had made sure not to call him by his hero name this time. Young Midoriya, sorry if I made you wait. No. It's my fault for calling you on short notice. So, what is this all about? Izuku asked. Well, I've watched your performance today in the quirk assessment test. I even talked with Aizawa and he thinks you're doing something wrong while using the new ability of your quirk. One for all to be precise. Is it about me breaking my bones? Izuku questioned, thinking that his teacher wasn't happy with what happened during the ball throw test. Not to mention how he hurt everyone present too. No, not exactly. All Might then looked around to make sure no one was around just in case and then powered up to his muscle form. Young Midoriya, I want you to punch my hands 2 times. One with your right and the other with your left using one for all. All Might instructed, to which Izuku nodded. Izuku then proceeded to power up and charge the power of one for all at 8% in his right arm. The energy coursed through his veins before Izuku punched All Might's hand. All Might was surprised to see his hand pushed back a little. He was holding back, but he should have had perfectly blocked the punch with the amount of strength he put in. Something is definitely different about him, All Might thought before he quickly shrugged it off, waiting for Izuku's second punch that for some reason didn't come. Izuku, who was still charging the power of One for All in his left arm, was cut off by All Might. "Why are you taking so much time to punch my other hand?" All Might asked. "I was charging the power of One for All in my left arm," Izuku replied, a bit confused by the question and why All Might stopped him. "Am I doing something wrong? Wait, is he trying to tell me?" Izuku thought. He's using his quirk as an on and off switch. All Might remembered Aizawa's words. "You're using your quirk like an on and off switch, and not like an extension of my body," Izuku continued as he figured out what was All Might trying to tell him. "Wait, you knew?" All Might quickly replied, surprised by his successor's words. He didn't expect Izuku to know the answer. "All Might, do you remember when I told you how I'm able to faintly see a blue energy inside people's bodies?" Izuku asked. "Yes, I do remember. You said something about how this energy is actually what makes people use their quirks." All Might replied as he tried to remember Izuku's explanation from that day. "Correct. By channeling this energy and using it, anyone can use his quirk. Before I started to imagine the egg in the microwave, I used to observe with my Sharingan this energy and channel it in a way that makes me able to safely use One for All without breaking my bones," Izuku explained as All Might paid attention to understand everything that Izuku was saying. "Yes, but with practice, you were able to control the output by getting used to the feeling and imagining the egg in the microwave," All Might explained, helping his student with the puzzle he was trying to complete. However, when I observed my classmates' quirks during the quirk apprehension test, I noticed something different." "What is it?" "They were channeling this energy in their entire body. For example, that blonde-hair kid named Aoyama. The energy that is spread through his entire body concentrates in his stomach, allowing him to shoot his beams. The pink-skinned girl named Mina. She spreads the energy in her entire body before she can shoot her acid from anywhere. The same thing with that girl named Momo Yaoyorozu, except that her energy lets her create anything," Izuku replied. "Let me guess, you channel it in one limb, right?" "Yeah," Izuku replied with a sheepish smile on his face. All Might could only smirk at his protégé's words. The boy was a natural genius. "I see your analysis skills are as sharp as always, young Midoriya. So, do you have any idea on how to improve?" Izuku then shook his head and began to think out loud. One for All and the Sharingan are really different. In order to use the Sharingan, all I have to do is activate it through my eyes and then I can use its powers freely. But for One for All, I have to activate it. Wait, the Sharingan is a quirk that all I need to do to use it is activate it from the start, and One for All is a quirk like the Sharingan, so all I have to do is channel the energy in my entire body before I use it. No, I have to channel it and keep it spread out while controlling the output and making sure that I don't go over 8%. All Might, I figured it out. All Might just looked at Izuku with a puzzled expression and sweat dropped. He had to admit that Izuku's muttering was really helpful to the kid. No, a very weird, powerful asset that could be considered a quirk. "Then show me what you can do, young Midoriya." "Yes, sir." Izuku then concentrated and activated One for All. He also activated his Sharingan to make sure that the blue energy was spreading through his entire body at 8%. However, he was surprised to see that it's cyan. "Can you move?" All Might asked. Izuku waved his right arm, trying to get the feeling of this new power. "I think I can, but there's something else I just noticed," he replied. "What is it?" "The energy's color changed to cyan. It's not blue anymore." All Might was really surprised by this. He already had little to no info about this whole blue energy thing, but now Izuku was telling him that his energy went from blue to cyan. He was afraid that something bad might happen. However, the next thing that happened surprised him more, as green/cyan lightning began to swirl around Izuku's body. "Is this normal?" Izuku asked, not knowing if All Might ever went through something like that. "No, this isn't normal by any means," All Might replied. Seeing that nothing else was happening, All Might decided to test Izuku's new form. "Try to throw those 2 punches again." Izuku was able to perfectly land 2 consecutive punches at a high speed. All Might was surprised by this. He was glad that he put in more strength in his hand before the attack. Good job, young Midoriya. Try 2 kicks now. Izuku then landed 2 kicks without any delay. All Might was now sure that Izuku reached a whole new level of power. How do you feel? He asked to make sure that his successor is okay. I feel like my body is much lighter and stronger now, Izuku responded. He was in awe by this new power, as there was so much he could do now. The possibilities were endless. All Might hummed in thought, trying to come up with some theory about Izuku's new form. My theory is that since One for All gets stronger with each generation, it might have reached a new level and it could explain why your energy changed to cyan. I think it just took its time until it finally blended with your DNA. It could also explain why your ball throw was too powerful today. Izuku nodded as he couldn't help but agree with everything All Might said. After all, it was the only reasonable explanation they had. However, little did Izuku and All Might both know that this wasn't a regular power-up, but something much bigger. I think I'll call this form One for All, Full Cowl. Izuku pointed out and All Might nodded, having no problem with the name. Then it seems like we're done for today. Prepare yourself, because we will start sparring together next Saturday. We need to gauge this new power after all. Really? Sparring with you, All Might? That's amazing, Izuku shouted. Ha ha ha, I like your spirit. You better go back home now. We don't want to worry your mother. See you tomorrow, All Might, Izuku exclaimed as he waved goodbye to his hero. All Might waved back at Izuku, and the latter went back home content with his progress. The next day, the first class in Class 1A's curriculum was English, which was boring to everyone even though it was Present Mike who was teaching it. Lunch was at the main cafeteria, where students can buy gourmet food for reasonable prices. Of course, Izuku immediately started to fanboy once he met Lunch Rush, the cook hero in person. And then in the afternoon, Class 1A had hero basic training. Izuku smirked as he knew exactly who it was. Coming through the door like a normal person, All Might burst through the door very dramatically, which was not normal at all. It's All Might, Kaminari said excitedly as he truly was hyped to be taught by none other than the #1 hero. Wow, he really is a teacher, Kirishima cheered as he stood up. That's a costume from the Silver Age, isn't it? Suyu said observantly. Its style is so different. It's giving me goosebumps, Ojiro stated as a bead of sweat rolled down his cheek. All Might marched to the teacher's podium. I teach hero basic training. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. You will take the most units of this subject. Let's get right into it. This is what we'll do today, combat training, All Might exclaimed as he held a card that read the word battle. Bakugo smirked in anticipation. Combat training, Izuku finished as he too was smirking. He had to admit he was just so excited to try his full cowl and test it against someone. And to go with that are these. All Might pointed to the wall as from holes installed there came out numbered boxes from 1 through 20. Costumes made based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. The students cheered in delight as they couldn't wait to try their new costumes on. Costumes, Izuku said to himself, eager to try his. After you change, gather in ground beta. Yes, sir. At ground beta, All Might stood at ground beta waiting for his students to arrive. After a couple of seconds, figures can be seen coming out through the tunnel. They say the clothes make the man, young men, and ladies. Be fully aware. From now on, you are heroes. As he said that, students from Class 1A all entered through the tunnel with their hero costumes equipped. Every costume was unique and fitted each of the aspiring heroes in training. All Might smiled as he greatly approved of everybody's gear. That's great, everyone. You all look cool. Now, shall we begin, you zygotes? Flashback to 3 weeks ago. I need to go to City Hall to get my quirk registration for the clothing allowance, Izuku said as he was sitting on his couch with papers spread all around the table. He got caught up with all of the training with All Might that he forgot to send in his request for his costume, and he left it for the last minute. Oh wait, but I'm already registered as quirkless. Oh crap, what should I do? He decided to call All Might for help. Quirk registration? Oh yeah, you can update that, All Might said blatantly as he sat in the teacher's lounge. Wait, really? Just like that, All Might chuckled. Everyone is examined and registered all at once when they enter elementary school and junior high, right? But there are cases where people discover their quirks are not what they thought they were. So you're allowed to update it once or twice. They won't accept outrageous changes. But if you had none before, it's probably fine. I'm home, Inko yelled from the front door. Izuku got nervous, afraid that his mother could find out All Might and Izuku's secret, so he panicked and hung up by accident. Damn it! I hung up by mistake. I'll have to apologize to All Might later. Welcome back, Izuku greeted his mother. Hey Izuku, Inko began as she pulled something out of her bag. Congrats on getting into UA, she added as she showed him the jumpsuit she bought for him. I might have jumped to conclusions, though. A jumpsuit, Izuku repeated as he inspected it. It's not much as it is now, though. When you dozed off while studying, I happened to see your notebook. What? Izuku blushed. However, Inko's expression changed as she looked sad and bothered by something. The terrible thing I said kept bothering me. I gave up back then. But you didn't give up. You kept chasing your dream, didn't you? Inko said as she recalled the time when she couldn't tell Izuku that he can become a hero. She began to tear up, but Izuku stopped her from going any further. His facial expression was now matching his mother's. Mom, please, we both know that's not true. I gave up that day. And there has been a couple of times when I felt low and that I would never make it. So, don't blame yourself because you don't need to. You were just worried about me and you have every right. Izuku then pulled his mother in a tight hug. He noticed how she was shaking. Seems like she never got over that day and it was definitely a bad idea to bring it up. Thank you for being my mother and sorry for all the trouble I caused you, especially when you had to raise me all alone. As he finished his little speech, his mother began to sob and he tried his best to console her. After a few minutes, she finally calmed down and looked at her son again. Still, Izuku, with everything that happened to you, you ought to be proud of yourself. No matter how much life put you down, you stood up again, you never gave up. And let me tell you this is something that many adults fail to do. What I've done back then was still wrong and I'm sorry. I'll support you openly with everything I've got from now on, she exclaimed as she forced a smile and handed him his jumpsuit. Seeing this, Izuku had a few tears in his eyes too. He was going to use this jumpsuit to come up with the best hero costume he can come up with. After all, these were his mother's feelings. Back to the present, Izuku jogged through the tunnel as he was a little behind everyone else. It took him a little more time to get into his costume, so he had to hurry or else everybody will wonder where he's at. He finally entered ground beta as everybody had their eyes on his costume. Izuku's costume consisted of a dark green jumpsuit like the one from costume beta. He only changed the color to a darker green. A red belt in which he had some belt pouches to carry first aid items like a roller gauze, medical tape, and some elastic bandages. He also had leg bracers and his red shoes, a pair of white gloves with 2 blue stripes at the base and elbow pads. On his face, he had a metal mask that he could move from his neck to his mouth and looked like All Might's smile. His ears had special green earpieces that looked like All Might's 2 bangs. Each one had a button that once Izuku pressed, would make a light green mask made of toughened glass appear over his eyes to protect them from danger. In case the danger was too strong for the glass, it would immediately go back to his earpieces so that no sharp glass shard could hurt Izuku's eyes. Finally, on his back was a symbol that looked like a fan. The upper half was red and the lower one was white. "This is my costume," he said to himself. "Oh, Deku-kun?" Achiko said once she noticed that Izuku arrived on ground beta. "Uraraka," Izuku called her, but once he got a good look at Achiko's costume, he began to blush. "That looks so cool. Very original and unique. I should have written what I wanted. Mine ended up being a skin-tight bodysuit. It's embarrassing. The hero course is the best," Mineta said as he gave Izuku a thumbs up. "Oh, Midoriya, you look cool," Ojiro complimented his friend. Izuku really wanted to return the compliment if Ojiro didn't just stick with his martial arts uniform. "Ha ha ha. Don't worry. I know what you're thinking," he reassured the Sharingan user. "What is that symbol?" Uraraka asked as she inspected the back of his costume. Ojiro was also interested to know more about it. "I actually don't know, but I saw that symbol in my parents' room. It was a painting. I even saw it on some of my dad's old clothes. I kinda like it for some reason. I have to admit, it looks very stylish. I wonder if it's a brand. Achiko added, making Izuku blush. All Might saw Izuku's costume and couldn't help but chuckle at the similarities. So obvious, he thought. All Might then noticed that everyone was here, so he began to give his instructions and explain the exercise. Now, it's time for combat training. Sir, this is a battle center from the entrance exam, so will we be conducting urban battles again? Tenya asked, and Izuku recognized him from his voice and hand movements. And that is because Tenya had a knight armor for a hero costume. Izuku had to admit that Tenya's costume looked cool and suited his personality. No, we're going to move ahead 2 steps. Most of the time, fighting villains takes place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. In this society filled with heroes, truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2 on 2 indoor battles. Without basic training? Tsuyu asked, wondering if they were up to the task. This is a real battle to understand those basics. However, the key this time is that there's no robot you can just beat up. How will wins and losses be determined? Momo questioned. Can we beat them up anyway? Bakugo asked, hoping to blast whoever his opponent is. Will the punishment be expulsion like with Mr. Aizawa? Achiko asked, as she didn't want to experience that kind of pressure again. How shall we be split up? Tenya questioned. Isn't this cape crazy? Aoyama said randomly. All Might began to become overwhelmed as he wasn't used to being asked like 10 questions at once. He was a novice when it came to teaching. I'll answer all of your questions. Now listen here. All Might brought out his teaching notes. A script? Izuku thought with a sweat drop as he found amusement in his mentor's antics. The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are trying to dispose of that. The heroes need to catch the villains or get the nuclear weapon back in the allotted time. The villains need to protect the nuclear weapon for the whole time or catch the heroes. All Might explained. This situation feels very American. Izuku commented. All Might brought out a yellow box. Teams and opponents will be determined by drawing lots. They're being decided so haphazardly? Tenya asked. He thought the selection would be more organized. Pros often have to create makeshift teams with heroes from other agencies. So maybe that's why. We need to always be prepared to team up with another hero and work with them if the situation asks for it. Izuku pointed out, and All Might was happy to see his successor's analytic mind already working. Tenya nodded his head as he understood Izuku's point. I see. The discernment to look ahead. Please excuse my rudeness, Tenya said as he bowed. It's fine. Let's hurry up and do this quickly. All Might bellowed as the students went and drew their lots to see who they were paired up with. Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Achiko Uraraka. Team B, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C, Momo Yaoyorozu and Minoru Mineta. Team D, Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. Team E, Mina Ishido and Yuga Aoyama. Team F, Rikido Sato and Koji Koda. Team G, Denki Kaminari and Kyoka Jiro. Team H, Fumikage Tokoyami and Tsuyu Azui. Team I, Hantasiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Ijiru Kirishima and Mashareo Ojiro. Wow, it must be fate. I'm counting on you, Achiko said cheerfully as she was excited over the fact that she and Izuku will be working together. However, Izuku was nervous over the fact that he got paired with a girl. Seriously? I have to speak properly? Or else Izuku's thoughts were cut off. Midoriya, come with me for a second. A familiar voice said. Everyone looked to see that it was Aizawa-sensei and were frightened, thinking that he's here to expel the losing teams or something. Don't worry, I won't expel anyone today, Aizawa said, much to the class's relief. Izuku went with Aizawa to a corner, wondering what did Aizawa-sensei want from him. In the quirk assessment test yesterday, you were using your new physical enhancement ability as an on and off switch. Yeah, I know, I already fixed that problem. Izuku replied. Did you figure this on your own? Aizawa asked while looking at a very nervous All Might. He felt like All Might was giving Izuku some favoritism. Yes, sir. Izuku lied to protect the secret of his relationship with All Might. Fine, we'll see what you can do today. The man replied, suspicious by how Izuku already figured out his problem and fixed it in one day. All Might put his hands in two boxes, a white one labeled hero and a black one labeled villain. The first teams to fight will be... All Might dramatically took his hands out, and in his hands appeared a black ball labeled D and a white ball labeled these guys. Team A will be the heroes, and Team D will be the villains. I'm sorry, young Midoriya, but it seems that fate has other plans for you today. All Might thought as he had an idea on how bad the relationship between these two is. Izuku and Bakugo both gasped. They didn't expect to be fighting each other so soon. Today is the day I show you that I've surpassed you, Kaken. Izuku thought as his mind was already forming a plan. Perfect. I finally get to crush Deku with my own hands and show him that he's just a pebble in my way. Everyone else, head toward the monitor room. Yes, sir. Besides the 4 students participating, the students of Class 1 did as they were told and left to go to the monitor room, accompanied by Aizawa-sensei to watch the battle that was about to unfold. Izuku looked towards Bakugo and saw that he was giving him a mean glare. At first, Izuku was taken back by it, the years of countless beatings flashing in his mind. But then, he clenched his fists and smirked as he looked back at Bakugo. He was telling him, "Come and get me." Bakugo was taken back by this gesture and the sight of Izuku's eyes as Izuku had activated his Sharingan to appear more intimidating, and it seems to have worked. Bakugo then got even angrier as he silently growled. Villain team, go in first and set up. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in and the battle will start. Yes, sir. The students minus Bakugo said as the villain team began to make their way into the building. Young Ida, young Bakugo, learn to think from the perspective of the villains. This is pretty close to a real battle. Go all out. Don't be afraid to get hurt. Yes, sir. Ida replied. If things go too far, I will stop it. Yes, sir. All the while, Bakugo looked towards Izuku, gritting his teeth in anger. He was utterly infuriated by him. When the villain team made it to the floor where the fake nuclear weapon was located, Tenya began to speak. Even if this is training, it pains me to become a villain. So, our job is to protect this. He proceeded to knock on the fake weapon. It's Papermick. Hey! Tenya turned around to see that Bakugo had his back turned towards him. Deku has a pretty strong quirk, doesn't he? As much as he hated to admit, Bakugo knew that Izuku had a strong quirk, which was proven during the ball throw test. He didn't know what it was exactly as he was sure that his special eyes weren't for show, but he knew that his super strength wasn't a joke. Well, yes, he has increased perception, he can predict attacks, he can copy fighting styles, and has increased physical ability. Enough! Bakugo said, cutting off Tenya. Bakugo was shaking in anger as a certain thought came to his mind. Has he been tricking me all this time? Playing me for a fool when in reality he had a strong quirk all along. That damn nerd. His quirk manifested a year ago. My ass. This is bullshit. No quirk can be this strong in a year. I bet he was hiding it all along. Meanwhile, the hero team was still outside discussing their battle strategy. It's a lot of work to memorize the building's floor plan, but All Might is just the same as when he's on TV. Unlike Aizawa-sensei, it looks like there's no threat of expulsion. But even he said that there's no expulsion today, so we can relax, and you're not relaxed at all. Achiko exclaimed as Izuku was visibly shaking. However, it wasn't because of nervousness, but it was because of excitement. This has been the moment he was waiting for. Well, it's because we're going up against Kaken, and there is something that I always wished I could do. For both me and him, even though he won't like it. I see. Bakugo's the one who makes fun of you, right? Achiko said as she remembered what Izuku told her yesterday about him, giving the name Deku to Izuku as an insult.
Izuku Seekhead.
He's amazing. I'll definitely surpass All Might and become the top hero. Bakugo's voice echoed in Izuku's head. It's true that he can be really annoying and a jerk, but his goal, his confidence, his physical strength, and his quirk were way more amazing than mine. Izuku then stood up and tightly balled his fists. But that's all in the past. Now I have my own power, my own confidence, my own drive, and my own goal. So now I refuse to lose to him. I refuse to make him believe that he's superior to me. Izuku said as his Sharingan came to life. Achiko stood in awe at the sheer determination that was coming from Izuku. It made her feel motivated and inspired her to do her best. She smiled at him. "So it's a fated battle between rivals, huh?" Izuku smiled sheepishly before saying, "Oh, well, I guess you could say that." Achiko raised her fist high and cheered. "All right then, let's do our best. We are a team, right? So, let's work together and win." "Yes," Izuku replied before grabbing the mask from his neck and adjusting it to his mouth. He then pushed the button on his earpiece that was also equipped with a communication device for his second mask to appear. Shortly after, All Might began to speak through the intercom speaker at ground beta. "Now, let's start the indoor persona-person combat training with Team A and Team D." Izuku looked towards Achiko and said, "Okay, listen up, Uraraka. Here's the plan." "Okay. Everyone, you all should think as well," All Might told the class as they were all gathered in the monitor room. There were monitor screens all over the place that showed various shots of the building. This allowed All Might and the students to see exactly what was going on and assess their performance as such. "Young Midoriya, here you are no more than a single student. I'll grade you strictly without playing favorites. So do your best, and remember our training together," All Might said mentally as he, Aizawa-sensei, and the rest of the students present stared at the monitors, waiting patiently for one of the teams to make a move. At that moment, Izuku and Achiko entered the building through an open window. "We've infiltrated successfully," Achiko said as they landed on the floor. "There are a lot of blind spots, so be careful to not get caught off guard," Izuku stated as the two began to walk through the hallways. Izuku kept his guard up, looking around with his Sharingan. Ida should be on the top floor guarding the nuclear weapon, Izuku thought. He then looked around again and saw Bakugo coming from behind the corner. Just as according to plan, Izuku quickly grabbed Achiko and moved out of the way the second Bakugo came around the corner and blasted an explosion aimed directly at Izuku, but it just hit the wall. "Uraraka, are you alright?" Izuku asked with genuine concern in his voice. "Yeah, thanks for the save," Achiko responded as dusted herself off. The smoke cleared as Bakugo swiped his arm through it. "Come DKU. Don't dodge and fight me like a man," Izuku chuckled as he stood up straight. "I figured you would come for me first, Kaken." Izuku's eyes narrowed, staring at Bakugo's form and trying to anticipate his next move. "A surprise attack from the start?" a student questioned. "Bakugo, that's cheating. A surprise attack isn't manly at all," Kirishima, a red-head guy, said angrily as he threw a fist to his palm. "A surprise attack is a strategy, too. They're in the middle of a real battle right now," All Might said as both he and Aizawa had their grading books in their hands. Midoriya avoided it. Mina happily cheered for Izuku. "There goes Bakugo," Kaminari warned as through the monitors they could see Katsuki charging straight towards Izuku. "I won't do so much damage that this fight gets stopped, but I'm gonna get close," Bakugo yelled as he aimed a right hook at Izuku. Music. Naruto OST The Raising Fighting Spirit extended. But before Bakugo's right hook could connect, Izuku countered by grabbing his right arm. The explosion team gasped in shock as his feet were off the ground now. Izuku lifted him above his head and brought him down, crashing to the ground with a strong force. "What the hell? Did he read my moves with his quirk?" Bakugo thought in panic. He then felt the air in his lungs coming out immediately as soon as his back slammed to the ground, causing a loud thud. "Wow, he's like a martial arts master," Achiko cheered as she was impressed by Izuku's amazing counter. In the monitor room, everybody, except for Ojiro and All Might, had their eyebrows raised as they weren't expecting Izuku to move so swiftly like that. They never knew that Izuku was a martial artist. He has improved so much over the last year. His stance, his throw, his movements, they were all flawless, very well executed, Aizawa noted, clearly amazed by Izuku's development. "I can't believe it. I did it. I managed to hit Kaken. I still can't believe it," Izuku said in his mind as he never imagined that a day like this would ever come. A day when he would see Bakugo as just another teen like him. "Kaken," Izuku began to speak as Bakugo began to pull himself up. "If you think I used my quirk to predict that attack, you're dead wrong. I know you usually start with a big right swing, How much do you think I've been watching you? I wrote an analysis for all of the heroes I thought were amazing in my hero journals, including you. Yes, in that same notebook you blew up and threw away last year. What? Bakugo shouted in bewilderment as he too remembered when he threw out Izuku's notebook from the window. The name Deku, the same one that you always use as an insult to call me useless and worthless. Well, guess what? The name Deku isn't going to mean useless or worthless or good for nothing anymore. Kaken, from now on, Deku is a name that will mean you can do it, it will mean never give up, it will inspire others. From this day forward, Deku is not the name of the frail kid you bullied, but the strong man in front of you who'll become the greatest hero. Deku is the name of the person who will bring you down today. Izuku shouted as his Sharingan was violently spinning. They were full of determination due to the intense emotions that Izuku was feeling at the moment. Achiko's cheeks had a slight tinge of red, as she remembered that those were the exact words that she used to describe the name Deku yesterday. Oh, is that right? I'm sorry, I didn't know. But Deku sounds like the Japanese word for you can do it. It has some sort of never give up vibe, so I kinda like it. Bakugo now stood completely on his feet. Izuku's words were now engraved forever in his memory. DKU, Bakugo angrily yelled. If you come any closer, Tool get angry. Bakugo remembered the day when Izuku first stood up to him. He was a weak, small child. He trembled and shook in fear as he stood in front of him and defended the other little boy that Bakugo and his lackeys were bullying. Izuku's face was full of tears that day, but now, 11 years later, it was a much different picture. The person that stood in front of him now was by no means a small, weak child. He was a strong, well-built young man. No tears could be seen on his intimidating eyes as he had an expression that screamed with an undying will and determination. His aura was full of power and bravery. Izuku Midoriya was no longer afraid of Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku was no longer inferior to Katsuki Bakugo or anyone else. DKU, you bastard, I'll kill you. Bakugo rushed at Izuku, but the latter didn't wait and got closer to the ash-blonde hair boy. Bakugo released an explosion at Izuku, aiming for his chest, but Izuku immediately ducked under the attack. He had already seen this coming thanks to his Sharingan. Lowest round kick, Izuku shouted before performing the attack, making Bakugo fall off of his feet. But before Bakugo could hit the ground, Izuku punched him in the guts, sending him flying to the other side of the corridor. Kaken. Izuku paused for a moment, as Uraraka and everyone from the monitor room were looking at him in awe. From now on, we're equals. Chapter 8, The Fated Battle. Kaken. Izuku paused for a moment. Uraraka and everyone from the monitor room were looking at him in awe. From now on, we're equals. Bakugo started to stand up again. His stomach was aching from the pain of that punch. You never stopped going after me, trying to catch up to me. Even after all the trauma I've put you through, you just kept standing up and moving again, always looking down on me. And now look at you. You're declaring that we're equals to my face, and that you'll beat me. Me. You're just a pebble, you damn nerd. Bakugo's hands ignited with small explosions, as his whole body and mind were consumed by his rage. That's what I hate about you, DKU. He shouted at the top of his lungs. Because Kaken and I lived in the same neighborhood. We've known each other since we were little. Izuku said in his mind, before some old memories came flashing through his head. Flashback 11 years ago. Let's go kill the enemy. Kid Bakugo said as he pointed towards a gate to a forest that read no trespassing. Okay. Bakugo's lackeys yelled as they were willing to follow the blonde explosion quirk user wherever he went. Okay. Kid Izuku added a little more hesitant than the others. Kaken was the type who could do anything he tried his hand at, a rascal who led the group of neighborhood kids. Good or bad, Kaken was full of confidence and I thought he was so cool. But after his quirk manifested, it accelerated him down the wrong path. Back to the present. All men are not created equal. This was the harsh reality that I learned about society at the young age of 4. Hey Bakugo, give me your status. What happened? Tenya said through Kaken's earpiece. Just shut up and defend. I'm really angry right now. Bakugo replied. I'm not asking about how you feel. Hey! But right before Tenya could say anything further, the connection was cut off. He hung up, going off on his own like that. What is wrong with him? Geez, the monitor room, what was Bakugo saying? Can't tell with just the cameras in a fixed position and no sound. Kirishima said, curious about what Izuku and Bakugo were saying. He's talking to his partner over the small wireless radio. You can bring that plus the building's floor plan and this capture tape. Once you wrap this around your opponent, it shows that you've captured them. All Might replied, the time limit is 15 minutes, and the heroes don't know where the nuclear weapon is located, right? Mina asked. Yes. All Might answered his student. The heroes are clearly at a disadvantage here. Mina pointed out, thinking that the situation was unfair for the heroes. Heroes should be able to turn the tables on whatever predicament they're in. Besides, didn't Aizawa-sensei tell you too? You know, here we go.
Plus ultra.
The students of Class 1A shouted their school's motto with enthusiasm. Next time you forget that, I'll expel you all. Aizawa added, which made the whole class flinch. Monsieur, Bakugo is Aoyama began. All Might looked towards the monitors at Aoyama's comment. Back to the battle, Bakugo put his left hand behind his back as he began to ignite an explosion. Izuku saw what he was doing and yelled at Achiko. Uraraka, go, right? Achiko replied as she made her way towards the upper floors. Bakugo fired an explosion to propel himself towards Izuku at high speeds. He aimed a roundhouse kick towards Izuku with his left leg, but Izuku managed to block the attack with his forearm just in time. Looking away during a fight? You must be sure of yourself. Damn right I am, Izuku shouted back. He then grabbed Bakugo's leg and began swinging him around before he threw him away. However, Bakugo managed to safely land on his feet by using his explosions. He's being cautious now. I won't win against him in a small room like this. His explosion quirk is way too powerful in a small area, and I won't be able to dodge. I'm gonna have to fight him in a larger room, but I need to make him come to me, Izuku thought as he carefully planned his next moves. Bakugo stood up after Izuku's swing and placed both of his hands behind him, but then he noticed Izuku running around the corner. Damn it! Don't you dare run away from me! Come back here, DKU! Bakugo yelled as he chased after him. After a few minutes of searching, Bakugo was growing impatient. Hey! You tricked me, didn't you? Was it fun tricking me all this time? Huh! You've got a flashy quirk there, don't you? Awakened it a year ago. Yeah, right. You think I'm a fool to believe this bullshit? Come out and face me. I'll prove to you that I'm better than you. Over here. Bakugo turned his head around at Izuku's voice. Reverse sweeping kick, Izuku shouted as he was spinning around. He then delivered a devastating kick in a wide arc to Bakugo's head. The kick sent Bakugo twirling around as he got knocked off his feet again. You damn nerd. I'll kill you, Bakugo growled. By the way, I forgot to tell you something, Kaken. Right now, I'm not even using my full. This is my base physical strength and not the enhanced one, Izuku exclaimed in an attempt to taunt Bakugo, something that was part of his plan. He was going to use Bakugo's anger against him. In the monitor room, damn, Midoriya's quirk is broken. Bakugo can't even land a single hit on him, despite being second to him in the practical exam. Kaminari commented, man, he's so OP. Zero added, if you think that his strength is the result of his quirk, you're dead wrong. Aizawa pointed out, what do you mean, sensei? Can't you see how he's dominating this match? Kirishima asked. When his quirk first awakened a year ago, it was so unique that Recovery Girl was studying it and even called me and All Might for help. She asked me to fight him, and honestly back then all what he was capable of was dodging my attacks and copying them. Still, with the restriction of being able to keep up with my movements. If I moved faster, it was impossible for him to dodge my attacks at all. Not to mention that he sucked at fighting. But after 10 months of hellish training, his physical strength went to a whole new level. He got better at using his quirk, and he even learned 2 different fighting styles as well as how to use weapons. So, don't say that his strength is the result of his quirk, because his strength is the result of his training, Aizawa explained. Upon hearing this, the whole Class 1A were amazed at Izuku's achievements. Their respect for their classmate only grew more and more. I can vouch for that, Ojiro murmured to himself as he saw Izuku's growth with his own eyes. However, he was surprised to hear that Izuku met All Might and Aizawa Sensei before, and the fact that they were studying his quirk. Why did he never mention that? Ojiro thought, wondering why Izuku hid something like that from him. I'm not going to lie, when I heard he was the #1 freshman for this year, I thought he was just your usual arrogant kid who's blessed with a strong quirk. However, it seems like he's totally different. Momo thought as she couldn't help but admire the Sharingan user. While I have to agree with you, Aizawa, I'm afraid that's not why young Midoriya has the advantage. He was always good at reacting quickly in a crisis. He spent years writing his notes and internalizing them, and his fanboy knowledge is helping him now. It's not that young Bakugo is weak or anything, but young Midoriya knows much more about young Bakugo's quirk than his own quirks. He knows everything about young Bakugo's movements. He's just reading him like a book, and he's using young Bakugo's anger issues against him. All Might thought as he stared at his successor through the monitor. All Might's eyes then drifted to Bakugo. Meanwhile, young Bakugo here has little to no info about Izuku's quirks and abilities, and his judgment is clouded by his anger. He's in denial and can't accept the fact that someone might be stronger than him, especially if that someone was the same person who was considered the weakest of the weakest. Back to the battle. You're just a pebble, Bakugo said, before memories of him and Izuku as kids came back to his head. Wow, Kaken, Kid Izuku said as he was impressed by Kid Bakugo's display of skill of kicking a ball up and down. This is easy, but when Kid Izuku tried to emulate Kid Bakugo, he failed and busted his behind. Ow! Izuku, you really can't do anything, can you? You can read the characters for Izuku as Deku, you know? Kid Bakugo pointed out. Kaken, you can read? One of Bakugo's lackeys asked. You can't? And Deku means someone who can't do anything. Someone who is useless. Kid Bakugo said as this was the origin of the name Deku. Really? Bakugo's lackeys began to make fun of Izuku for the new nickname that Bakugo came up with. Stop that, Kid Izuku said as he did not like the way that Kid Bakugo and his lackeys were treating him. It made him feel sad and he didn't like that feeling at all. Why don't you know? Kid Bakugo thought. Kid Bakugo threw a stone across the river and made it skip a bunch of times. His lackeys and Kid Izuku were really impressed by his performance and wanted to be just like him. Kaken, how many times did yours skip? One of the lackeys asked. 7 times. Kid Bakugo said proudly. Wow, that's Kaken for ya. What about you, Deku? Kid Bakugo asked as he looked towards Kid Izuku. Kid Izuku put his head down in shame and embarrassment. 0 times. Kid Bakugo and his lackeys proceeded to laugh at Kid Izuku. Why can't you do it? Kid Bakugo thought again. Kid Bakugo was in the middle of the classroom as every student plus the teachers were watching intently as small explosive sparks lit up his hands. His quirk has just manifested. Wow, that's so cool. Lucky, Kid Izuku said. Wow, that's an amazing quirk, the male teacher of the class said. It really is. It is a flashy quirk just right for a pro hero. Right, Katsuki? The female teacher replied. Oh, I see. I'm amazing. No one is as amazing as I am. Kid Bakugo thought, as this was only the beginning of how his ego got bigger and bigger, which made him the arrogant person he is today. You're so lucky. Your quirk is so cool. I hope I get mine soon too. Kid Izuku said as he and Kid Bakugo were walking through a forest, while Kid Bakugo had a fishing net in his hands. No matter what quirk you get, you'll never beat me. He's just a pebble, Bakugo said, as he was still lying on the floor. Hey, did you hear? Deku doesn't have a quirk. What? Really? Yeah. It's called being quirkless. That's so lame. Too bad for him. He's so weird. Don't worry about it, Izuku. Kid Izuku remembered the words of his mother, telling him not to worry. But that was thrown out the window as soon as the news spread about him not having a quirk. That is when the isolation for Izuku Midoriya began, and he was officially deemed a social outcast by his peers. You're the least amazing, Deku, Kid Bakugo thought. Forward march, members of the Bakugo Hero Agency. Kid Bakugo sang as he, his lackeys and Izuku went across a huge log that acted as a bridge since it was above the river. However, as Kid Bakugo was singing, he tripped and fell off the log and went straight towards the river. Kaken, Izuku shouted, genuinely concerned about his friend's safety. "Hey, are you okay?" "He's fine. Kaken's really strong." See, Kid Bakugo emerged from the water, completely unscathed. "I was fine," Bakugo angrily said. "Hurry up and get back up here." "Okay, no problem," Kid Bakugo responded, as he put his hand behind his head and smiled sheepishly. Nothing was wrong. Kid Bakugo heard footsteps coming towards him. He turned his head to see Kid Izuku with his hand outstretched for Kid Bakugo to hold and use as support. "Are you all right? Can you stand?" Kid Izuku asked sincerely, as he was truly worried for his friend and wanted to help him in any way he can. Kid Bakugo was speechless as his whole world was shaking upside down. "It would have been bad if you hit your head." As soon as those words left Kid Izuku's mouth, something snapped within Kid Bakugo. "Don't look at me with that face. You looked like you were asking for help." Bakugo remembered Izuku's words from when he saved him from the sludge villain, even though he was losing consciousness. "Stop it. I'm better than you, DKU." Bakugo yelled with all his might as his voice could be heard throughout the entire building. He immediately got up, ignored whatever pain he was feeling, and used his explosions to propel himself forward to where Izuku was. "Found it," Achiko said in her head as she peeked around and saw Tenya guarding the nuclear weapon. "Now I just have to tell Deku and hide until he gets here." Right before she was about to communicate to Izuku, she heard Tenya beginning to say something. "Bakugo is a natural at being bad, but that fits this training perfectly. Then, I must also devote myself to being a villain. That's right. This is another trial to turn me into a man who will not bring shame to the Ida family. Become a villain, be dyed with evil in order to become a hero. I am extremely evil." Achiko couldn't contain her laughter as she saw the scene unfolding in front of her. He's taking this so seriously. However, that slip-up cost her dearly as it announced to Tenya that she was hiding in the room. "Have you arrived, Uraraka?" "Oh no, my cover has been blown," Achiko thought. Knowing that she has been caught, she came out of hiding and revealed herself. "I knew you would come here alone the instant Bakugo ran off by himself. Your quirk allows you to make the objects you touch float. That is why I put away all the things on this floor before you arrived. Now you cannot play your little tricks. You have blundered, hero." Tenya then laughed like an evil maniac, knowing that he managed to corner her. "He's starting to look like a villain," Uraraka said as she decided to communicate with Izuku. "Deku." Deku heard his name through his earpiece as he touched it to respond. "Uraraka, how's it going?" "Ida found me. Sorry, I'm evil." Izuku heard someone talking dramatically through his earpiece, which confused him for a moment. "Right now he's... Where are you?" "The middle of the 5th floor, almost directly above us. We probably don't have much time left, either. If we run out of time, our opponents win." Izuku gripped the capture tape tightly. "I'll have to finish this fight now." Just then Bakugo made it to where Izuku was, blinded by rage and heavily panting. His right gauntlet glowed red. Bakugo smirked. "They're loaded, Kaken," Izuku said as he got into a fighting stance. "Why aren't you using your full power DEKU?" Bakugo asked. He continued, "Are you saying that you can beat me without using your full power? Are you underestimating me?" "DKU, yes, I can beat Kaken, I will." Izuku shot back with confidence. "From now on, we're equals." Bakugo widened his eyes as he remembered the words that sprouted from Izuku's mouth. "Equals? Like hell we are. You are beneath me, damn it," Bakugo thought, but then he calmed down a bit and raised his right arm. "With all your stalking, you probably already know, but my quirk, explosion. Let me secrete nitroglycerin-like sweat from the sweat glands on the palm of my hand and make it explode. If they made this the way I asked, then these gauntlets will store the nitroglycerin inside them." And Bakugo began to pull the firing pin on his grenade-like gauntlet. "Don't tell me that's..." "Young Bakugo, stop. Are you trying to kill him?" All Might yelled through the earpiece. "If I don't hit him, he won't die." "You have to be kidding me," Izuku shouted as he knew what Bakugo was going to do. But he also knew that he couldn't stop him. His eyes widened in fear. He had no idea if he was going to survive this explosion. At that moment, Bakugo pulled the firing pin as an explosion bigger than anything Izuku has ever seen Bakugo produce fired directly at him. Its attack potency was so strong that it rocked and made the entire building shake as Achiko and Tenya were knocked off their feet in the top floor. The explosion was even so strong that everyone else in the monitor room could feel it. "This is supposed to be a class," Kirishima yelled, as the rest of Class 1A were in complete shock of Bakugo's violent and brutal attack that could actually kill someone. "Young man, young Midoriya," All Might yelled as he was worried for his successor's safety. The smoke cleared as Izuku could be seen under a pile of debris. He was lucky that he jumped and avoided the blast, but the power of the explosion's shockwave threw him into a wall with a crashing force. "Is that even allowed? This is insane," Izuku exclaimed, and blood could be seen dripping from his head and covering most of his face. He couldn't believe that Bakugo just pulled an attack like this. Luckily for him, his eye mask worked correctly and went back to his earpieces. Bakugo made his way through the smoke. "Wow, the more that's stored in these gauntlets, the stronger the blast," Bakugo said, as his left gauntlet glowed red, signaling that it was completely loaded up. "Come on, show me your full power, DKU. I'll force you to surrender even if you're at full strength," Bakugo said as he made a smiling face that resembled that of a psychopath. "You're fucking crazy," Izuku replied. He usually wasn't the type to swear, but right now he couldn't help it. "Bakugo, answer me. Did you do that? What in the world did you do? Explain yourself," Tenya shouted through his earpiece, clearly curious about what the hell happened down there. "This is my chance. If we retrieve the weapon, we'll win," Achiko thought as she decided to take advantage of the situation and reach the nuclear weapon. Tenya saw what Achiko was doing and was immediately on the defensive. "I won't let you, hero." Achiko used zero gravity on herself and jumped right over Tenya as she floated above the air. "Can she make herself float now, too? We need to touch the weapon itself for it to count as being retrieved. Release." But before she even got a chance to reach the weapon, Tenya used his engine quirk to dash towards the weapon and snatch it, as then Achiko landed hard on the ground. "Your quirk is not a threat if you cannot touch anything. I'll hold out until time runs out." Tenya then did his evil laugh as he was really adapting the villain persona. "Deku is trying so hard though," Achiko thought as she got back up to her feet. Back to Izuku. Hey, what's wrong, DKU? I didn't hit you, so you can still move, can't you? Do you still think that you'll beat me? Come at me with your full power, you damn nerd." However, Izuku reached for his earpiece. "Uraraka, what's the situation?" "Deku," Achiko responded as she was relieved to find out that he was all right. Bakugo had an angry look on his face. "Ignoring me again? I can't believe this damn fucking nerd." Meanwhile, back in the monitor room, all of the spectators were watching the scene unfold. "Sir, you should stop them. That Bakugo's really crazy. He's gonna kill him," Kirishima pleaded to All Might, worried about Izuku's safety. "Yes, All Might, I don't approve of this at all," Ojiro added. He was genuinely concerned about Izuku being out there with a maniac like Bakugo. "I agree with the kids. This has gone too far," Aizawa added. "No," All Might said as he looked at the monitor screens. Strangely enough, part of him is still sane. I don't know if it's small-minded or what, but anyway, All Might replied as he spoke through his microphone. "Young Bakugo, the next time you use that, I'll stop the fight and your team will lose." "Ha!" Bakugo dumbly questioned, as if what he did was completely normal. To attack on such a large scale inside is inviting the destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. That is a foolish plan for both heroes and villains. You will lose a lot of points for it. As a teacher, I should stop this. However, no. All Might gained a puzzled look on his face once he heard Izuku's voice. He was surprised by Izuku's response. "Don't you dare to stop this fight, All Might. No matter what, don't stop it. I'm going to finish this battle right now," Izuku yelled as he stood up, taking his fighting stance. "What the fuck did you say, DKU?" Bakugo yelled, as he couldn't believe Izuku's words. "I said that I'm going to win and surpass you, you bastard." All Might and Aizawa were speechless as they were surprised by Izuku's words. "Young Midoriya, I believe in you," He knew that these were the first emotions Izuku showed, besides wanting to become a hero. At that moment, everyone could feel the rising tension, making them anxious as they had no idea what was going to happen now. "Fine then, let's fight it out with our fists," Bakugo angrily yelled, as he propelled himself with his explosions towards Izuku. Izuku tried to land a solid punch to Bakugo's face, but the latter used an explosion to dodge and move around Izuku. Bakugo then caught Izuku's arm tightly. "You're not going anywhere now, DKU," Bakugo shouted as his other arm ignited with explosions, showing that he was going to blast Izuku with it. However, before he could, Izuku quickly slapped his wrist, causing the explosion to fire at the roof. Unfortunately for the two of them, the explosion was strong enough to make a small part of the roof come down on them. Bakugo quickly let go of Izuku's arm, and both teens managed to dodge the incoming debris. Dust filled the room they were in, and no one was able to clearly see what's happening, including those who were in the monitor room. Once the smoke somewhat cleared, Bakugo tried to look for Izuku but was surprised to see Izuku coming out of the smoke. Unfortunately for Bakugo, he had no time to dodge. Izuku managed to land a devastating roundhouse kick, slamming Bakugo in a nearby wall. Izuku then tried to continue his assault, having no intention to show Bakugo any mercy. But unluckily for him, Bakugo shot an explosion from point-blank range at him. It was weaker than his previous explosions, but enough to knock him away. "Deku, hurry up and show me. Show me your full strength, you bastard," Bakugo exclaimed while heavily panting. He was near his limits. "I don't need to use my full power to beat you," Izuku shot back, causing Bakugo to become even more furious. Both teens then stood up, covered in blood and bruises, and stared at each other. Shortly after, Bakugo dashed over Izuku again with his explosions. He tried to punch Izuku using the built-up momentum he got. However, his fist was caught by Izuku. Bakugo then tried to kick Izuku in his head, but Izuku caught his leg too. "I got you now, DKU," he said as he aimed to fire an explosion at Izuku with his free hand. Seeing this, Izuku had to quickly think of something. He pulled Bakugo towards him and kneed him in the stomach. Unfortunately for Izuku, not using his full cowl costed him dearly as his attack wasn't powerful enough to stun Bakugo, who seized the opportunity to fire an explosion at Izuku. "Deku," Bakugo shouted. "Oh no," Izuku murmured. His back slammed to the ground with a loud thud. Bakugo then got on top of him and began to relentlessly punch his face. "He's not giving me the chance to take my breath, let alone think. 2. Did I fail? After all that training, did I really fail?" Izuku questioned in his mind, as his face received one punch after the other without a moment to spare. Monitor room. Everyone in the monitor room cringed at this sight. How is this supposed to be a hero core school, let alone the best? Allowing a student to injure another helpless student to this extent was so wrong. This is a lynching. He can capture him for this exercise by just wrapping the tape around him. Mina cried out, unable to watch the match anymore. "Those are not the actions of a hero," the Raven-head kid, Tokoyami, added. "I thought Midoriya was pretty amazing too, but in terms of combat power, Bakugo is definitely a ball of natural instincts." Denki commented, "All Might, Aizawa-sensei, please, stop this match. 2. I came here to learn how to protect other people, not massacre them," Ojiro shouted, unable to contain his anger. He was so angry over the fact that his friend was getting beaten and he couldn't help him. He was useless. Shortly after, other kids followed the previous kid's example and demanded the teachers to stop the match. "That's it, the kids are right, All Might. I'm stopping this match, and I'm going to give Bakugo a serious talk about this," Aizawa pointed out, but All Might stopped him by putting his arm in front of him. Aizawa's eyes widened in surprise. This has to be the most irrational and stupid thing he ever saw. "What's the meaning of this, All Might?" Aizawa questioned. "I know I should stop them, but I don't want to stop them. For his sake," All Might thought before looking at Izuku again. Seeing him taking hit after hit, he finally decided that this was the enough. "I'm sorry, young Midoriya, you didn't use your full cowl and it costed you the match. Please forgive me. I'll stop them myself, Aizawa," All Might pointed out, Both of UST All Might began but was interrupted by Tsuyu. All Might, look, Midoriya. Meanwhile, with Izuku, with each punch coming down his face, Izuku began to remember some of his past childhood memories. Flashback, the situation wasn't any different. Kid Bakugo was on top of Kid Izuku, relentlessly punching his face left and right. He was surrounded by his classmates who had formed a circle around them to make sure that Kid Izuku doesn't escape. It wasn't anything new to Kid Izuku though, as this happened countless times before. Oi, DKU. How are you going to become a hero when you're so weak? Huh. You quirkless piece of shit. You're even worse than any extra here. Kid Bakugo continued his assault and the other children were cheering for him. Tell me, DKU, do you think that you can become the greatest hero? Do you think you can surpass me? Teen Bakugo asked. Normally, Kid Izuku would have protected his face with his hands, but they were pinned down by Tsubasa and Kid Bakugo's other lackey. I will become a hero, Kid Izuku weakly said, before his face was met by another punch. I will become the greatest hero and surpass you, Teen Izuku replied. Sorry, I think I didn't hear you well. Can you repeat what you just said? Kid Bakugo exclaimed with a cocky smirk. Teen Bakugo growled in anger. Why can't this nerd ever give up? Both versions of Bakugo were met with silence. Kid Bakugo's hand ignited with an explosion, threatening Kid Izuku, before he got closer to his face to hear his answer. Teen Bakugo pulled his fist back and shouted, "Don't look at me like that, you damn nerd." Music. My Hero Academia OST You Say Run. Izuku's Sharingan were now intensely spinning. He was filled with so many emotions: disappointment, sadness, anger, fury, and hatred, all caused by the memories he just saw. He then carefully observed Bakugo's incoming punch, reading his movements. Bakugo's fist was so close to hitting Izuku's face now. However, he was surprised to see that Izuku managed to catch it with his hand. Then the next scene showed both versions of Kid and Teen Izuku pulling their head back and giving both versions of Kid and Teen Bakugo one hell of a headbutt. Bakugo shrieked in pain and was pushed back a couple of feet. He put his hands on his forehead. It was aching so much from the pain. Fuck! Bakugo yelled, both from the physical and mental damage. He too was just reminded by that day and how Izuku gave him that hellish headbutt. It was back at the time when Izuku still had some fight in him. Izuku slowly stood up again, although with some effort. He was silent, watching Bakugo recovering from that last attack and carefully planning his next moves. Bakugo then looked at Izuku with a very furious expression. His entire focus was on Izuku. To hell with this match, he was going to put Izuku through a whole world of pain. You're below me, DKU. Bakugo jumped in the air and was ready to fire an explosion to go behind Izuku's back. But before he could, Izuku jumped towards him and punched him in the face. Upon making contact, Izuku's fist knocked Bakugo a couple of feet away from him. Die, you damn nerd! Bakugo yelled as he fired more explosions towards Izuku. Izuku just kept dodging the explosions quickly, jumping over the first one, then going to the right as he jumped on a wall and propelled himself, dodging the second explosion. Finally, as the distance between him and Bakugo grew shorter, he dodged the last explosion by sliding underneath Bakugo's legs, going behind his back. Bakugo turned around, but it was too late as Izuku was done preparing his next attack. Twin strike. Izuku clenched both of his fists, pulled them back and punched Bakugo with equal force and at the same time, disturbing the latter's balance. But before he could go flying away from the attack's force, Izuku grabbed the capture tape and used it the same way Aizawa showed him last year to capture Bakugo. Young Bakugo, you're out. All Might spoke through his microphone as Class 1A cheered for Izuku's victory. Many students let out a breath they didn't know they were even holding, as this match was nerve-wracking. Izuku just stood there, dumbfounded. He just defeated Bakugo, and he was having a hard time believing it. However, he quickly snapped out of his gaze. There was almost no time left, and they still didn't seize the nuclear bomb. He gave Bakugo a quick look, and the latter looked shocked and broken. Izuku couldn't help but sympathize with him and decided to give him a few words. It's true that I was a pebble compared to you a year ago, but now this pebble became a strong big rock. However, even this strong rock knows that somewhere in this world, There's a strong mountain, but that said rock won't stop becoming stronger. Izuku looked at Bakugo, who was still in shock from what had just happened. Izuku hoped that Bakugo finally learns his lesson. Yes, Izuku wanted to teach Bakugo a lesson, and that lesson was humility. Izuku then knew that there was no time left. He powered up and activated his full cowl at 8%. The scent of ozone filled the air as he powered up. One for all, full cowl, 8%. He said in his mind as green lighting surrounded his body. Monitor room, what's this? Midoriya looks different. Kirishima voiced everyone's thoughts, as he and everyone present were gawking at Izuku's new form, except for All Might. He looks magnifique. Aoyama commented, happy to have found a sparkling buddy. So, this is what he meant by finding a new way to control his quirk. Aizawa thought, clearly surprised by Izuku's new form. Hurry up, young Midoriya. There's not much time left. All Might thought as only 1 minute was left. Back to Izuku. Izuku decided to stop wasting any more time. He had to go help Achiko. So, without any delay, Izuku sprinted off towards the top floor. Seeing his new form, Bakugo was even more shell-shocked to see how much stronger did Izuku get. He lowered his head and gritted his teeth. Deku was in a whole different league than him, and he knew it was the truth. Izuku quickly arrived to the 5th floor, thanks to his super speed. Tenya was about to attack Achiko, but Izuku immediately dashed over Tenya and pulled his fist back. Detroit Smash! Izuku punched Tenya right in his guts, sending him flying and crashing into a wall. Tenya was surprised. His mind couldn't even comprehend what just happened. He had no idea what just hit him. That is until he saw Izuku's new majestic form. I'm sorry, Ida, but I'm here, Izuku said as he finally touched the nuclear weapon, getting the win for his team. For a moment, everyone was silent. They were all in awe at Izuku Midoriya's extraordinary power. All Might then grabbed the microphone and shouted, "Hero team wins!" And shortly after, everyone began cheering, clearly hyped up by the conclusion of this epic battle. Chapter 9, Izuku and Katsuki. A new start? Hero team wins! All Might announced in the microphone, as everyone began cheering, clearly hyped up by the conclusion of this epic battle. What did Midoriya do at the end? What was that form? Kaminari questioned, as he and the others were still shell-shocked by what just happened during the last minute of the match. He was so much faster than Ida, yet maybe stronger than even Shoji. He took him out with one punch. He's so manly, Kirishima replied with a lot of enthusiasm. It wasn't every day that you had the chance to see an exciting match as this one. He was so cool and shiny. Mina commented, maybe a limited time boost. He only used it at the end of the match, ribbit. Tsuyu tried to make an assumption while putting a finger on her chin. It seems like Midoriya found a new way to control his quirk without injuring himself. Aizawa pointed out, as the students were impressed at how quick was Izuku able to negate the drawbacks of his quirk. After all, it only took him a day, and that was thanks to the Sharingan. This kid is really something else. There's no doubt that Bakugo is pretty strong and talented in combat, but it appears that Midoriya is what you can call a prodigy. However, I wonder why Midoriya wasn't using his full power from the start? Aizawa thought as he graded Izuku on the battle trial exercise. Izuku may have won the match and overall performed well, but Aizawa was definitely going to deduct some points for holding back. If this was a real-life situation, it wouldn't be wise to waste time like that, especially when the villains had a bomb. That is, unless it was really a limited time boost. Meanwhile, a white and red-haired boy was staring at Izuku through the monitor in utter silence. I thought that I could easily be the best with only my right side, but Midoriya proved to be a much bigger threat than I initially thought. He said in his mind as he truly thought that Izuku was the only one who can match his power. Ever since the ball throw test, the bicolor-haired teen knew that Izuku wasn't your average student. Back at ground beta, "Hey Uraraka, are you alright? Are you hurt or anything?" Izuku asked his teammate, making sure she was fine. "I'm alright, but what about you? You look like you had a trip in a minefield or something." Achiko assured him and chuckled, as she already knew why Izuku looked so bad right now. Izuku took a quick look at himself. Aside from the few burn marks on his arm and the bruises he got here and there and notably on his face, judging from the stinging pain. He noticed that his new costume was really damaged. The right sleeve of his costume was torn off, the costume had a few holes, and one of his earpieces broke, probably after that big explosion Bakugo fired at him. "Always count on Bakugo when it comes to explosions," he replied in a deadpan voice. He was a bit annoyed by the fact that his new costume got damaged. Heck, this was the first time he tried his hero costume, so it definitely sucked. "But you were really amazing back there, Deku. You just came out with lightning sparkling around you. And next thing I saw, you were in front of Ida and were like, Detroit Smash." Achiko mimicked Izuku's punch with a giggle. "After that, you touched the weapon, securing the win for us, and were like, I'm here," she added. Izuku, now finally out of battle mode, began to realize that he was holding a conversation with a cute girl. And on top of that, that said girl was now praising him and giving him compliments, causing his face to turn red. That was a new idea I came up with to control my quirk," Izuku replied, trying his best not to stutter or embarrass himself. "Hee, if only I can get rid of my quirk's drawbacks too," Achiko responded with a sheepish smile. "I'm sure you'll be able to figure something out. Maybe the support department has something to fight nausea," Izuku pointed out as he regained his composure. "Maybe. I'll make sure to check it out later," Achiko replied, as she and Izuku made their way out of the building. "Are you sure you don't need to go to Recovery Girl with these injuries?" "I'm fine. I can go after the class ends," Izuku replied. He wanted to stick around and study his classmates' quirks, and technically, he was used to getting these types of injuries from Bakugo. It wasn't the first time after all. Izuku's had a hint of sadness in them as the last thought crossed his mind. Speaking of Bakugo, the explosion teen was still where Izuku left him, utterly silent. His eyes were still wide open in shock. It was obvious that he wasn't taking this loss so well. "Deku defeated me," Bakugo murmured to himself and finally broke the silence. He was still sitting on the ground and shaking. He never imagined in his life that he would ever hear himself saying those 3 words. Two didn't stand a chance against him, and he wasn't even using his full power. Then does that mean that if Deku fights me using his full power, I'll be completely destroyed? Does that mean I'm not even in his league? Bakugo rhetorically asked himself. Despite how much he wanted to deny this, to say it was a fluke or that this was all possibly a bad dream and that he'll soon wake up, Bakugo knew it wasn't. Deku, the quirkless kid who, despite how much he tried to put him down, always got up, finally did what Bakugo always feared. He rose above him and bested him. When did Deku even get this strong? How did I not notice this? Bakugo added, as tons of questions were popping in his head right now. His panic was becoming more and more evident the more he questioned Izuku's strength. That is, until he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Come back, young Bakugo. It's time to review the results. Whether you win or lose, looking back and learning from your experiences is a part of life," All Might said from behind Bakugo, finally able to snap him out of his shock. Bakugo then somewhat regained his composure before he followed the pro hero. The monitor room. As the participants returned to the monitor room, the teachers finished grading each one of them and decided on who was getting the MVP. Well, even if I say that the MVP for this battle was young Midoriya, I want to hear all of your opinions on this match. Midoriya rocks.
Mina hated.
Young Ishido were talking about detailed comments for the 4 of them here. All Might sternly replied, as this is supposed to be a serious discussion.
Sorry.
She apologized. Anyone wants to share his opinions about the match? All Might then noticed Momo Yaoyorozu raising her hand and naturally gave her the permission to speak. Yes, All Might Sensei. Momo replied. Midoriya is the MVP because he adapted the most to the context of the training. He managed to capitalize on Bakugo's weakness and got his attention in order for Uraraka to locate the weapon. He defeated Bakugo with minimal damage to the building and finally secured his team's victory. However, it is also to be noted that it was a mistake from him to hold back during his fight with Bakugo. After all, as we all saw, he could have finished the battle much earlier if he had used that special form from the start. But if it was for the purpose to conserve some stamina to fight Ida later, then I believe we can ignore this mistake. Momo gave her input on Izuku before turning towards Bakugo. From watching the match, it was evident to me that Bakugo acted on his own because of an obviously personal grudge, which is a critical mistake that, as I said before, Midoriya was able to capitalize. Not only that, but as All Might Sensei said, it is foolish to launch a large-scale attack indoors. As for Uraraka, she let her guard down in mid-battle, which could have cost her dearly if this was a real battle. On the other hand, Ida did pretty well. He had prepared for his opponent's arrival and assumed it would be a fight over the weapon, which made him late in responding to the final attack. Honestly speaking, Ida wasn't too far from being the MVP either. Momo finished as everyone was clearly awestruck at her analytic skills. That is except for Bakugo, who was just upset and looking down, and Ida, who was now happy with his overall performance. She said more than I expected. Both All Might and Aizawa thought in unison. That was correct. All Might said with a thumbs up. I'm sorry for holding back until the last minute of the match. Izuku apologized. His personal feelings got in the way of the exercise and he knew that what he did was unnecessary. After all, his objective today was to test the full extent of his full cowl. While I'm going to deduct some marks over the fact you held back, I'll give you a bonus since you managed to figure out a way to control your quirk in just one day. Aizawa commented, making Izuku smile. However, hold back again and I'll expel you. The exercises you're doing this week are a way for us teachers to gauge your full strength, so that we can then plan on how to make you improve and such. Aizawa added, and Izuku flinched at the threat.
Name: Momo Yelioros.
Quirk. Creation: she can create anything from the lipids in her body, as long as she knows its molecular composition. Momo is a fairly tall teenage girl with a rather mature physique, considering her age. She has long black hair that is normally tied into a spiky ponytail with a large strand hanging on the right side of her face and onyx eyes that point slightly inwards, which seem to resemble a cat. She is also one of the 4 students admitted to the hero course based on recommendations. All right, everyone, let's change locations and start the second match. Tackle this training after thinking about what we just talked about. Yes, sir. The students responded. They were really excited to give it their all after watching the previous match. Battle Building B. Match 2. Team B are the heroes, and Team I are the villains. The villain team was Toru Hagakure, with a quirk that makes her invisible, and Hantasiro with a quirk that makes him shoot tapes from his elbows. The hero team was Mizo Shoji, quirk, dupli arms. He can create replicas of his own body parts on the tips of his tentacles. And Shoto Todoroki, quirk, half cold, half hot. He's another one of the 4 admitted to the hero course based on recommendations. He freezes with his right and burns with his left. The range and temperature of his ability is unknown, as he froze the whole building along with the villain team, winning the match in an instant. Everyone in the monitor room was freezing as his power was so strong, it managed to drop the temperature in the monitor room as well. Everyone was gobsmacked at his power while Bakugo grew more frustrated. He clenched his fists as he realized that Izuku wasn't the only student who was stronger than him. Speaking of Izuku, the Sharingan user already had his hero analysis notebook number 14 in his hands and began writing some information about his classmates' quirks. It seems like Hagakure's quirk is just plain invisibility, which could work well in espionage missions and such. Siro's quirk lets him shoot tape from what I saw, but I don't have any more info since the match ended quickly. I got a good look at Shoji's quirk, but Todoroki is a different story. His ice alone makes him a powerful foe, and we didn't even get to see his fire, Izuku thought as he added more things to his notebook. When the participants returned, Shoto passed by Izuku, but not before giving him a glance over his shoulder, and the latter just glanced back at him. Shoto Todoroki, huh? I'll have to be careful if I ever fight him, Izuku said in his mind. Battle Building C. The villain team was Ojiro and Ejiro Kirishima, who his quirk makes him able to harden any part of his body, becoming a great offense and defense in one body. The hero team was Fumikage Tokoyami, quirk, Dark Shadow. A dark shadow of him comes out from his body with a mind of its own, and Tsuyu Ajui. Ojiro's team was able to win, thanks to Kirishima taking the blows and distracting Dark Shadow, while Ojiro managed to sneak on Tokoyami with a surprise attack, Azui had no chance of winning once it came to a 2 versus 1 match. The competitors returned once the match ended and MVP was given to Ojiro for the outstanding plan he came up with. "Nice match, Ojiro." Izuku complimented his friend. "I expected nothing less and your plan was well executed. Thanks. As much as I hate to admit it, there is no way in hell we could have defeated them in a 2 against 2 match. I figured out that letting them come to us and taking down whoever comes first should give us the advantage, and luckily that person was Tokoyami. He excels at long-range, but short-range combat isn't his thing." Ojiro explained his plan. "It seems like your analysis skills rubbed off on me." Ojiro chuckled. Izuku laughed back as he remembered how he made the both of them analyze quirks in their free time before UA. Both teens may be rivals, but they make sure to share any valuable skill they have with each other. That is, in order to reach the top like they promised each other. Izuku had also noticed before UA that Ojiro is pretty clever when it comes to battle strategies, and he was sure that combined with the quirk analysis skill, Ojiro could prove to be a deadly strategist. "Yeah, Ojiro is so manly." Kirishima came in out of nowhere, surprising both teens. The matches continued till everyone was able to show their abilities, and the teachers were content with their students' performance. Izuku was also happy with the information he got on his classmates' quirks, and was definitely going to expand on them once he returns home. Recovery Girl's office. The school year has just begun, and he's already been in here 3 times. Why didn't you stop him, All Might? Recovery Girl scolded the pro hero. "I apologize, Recovery Girl." All Might apologized. "What are you apologizing to me for? Geez, I know he's your favorite and that you passed on your powers to him, but doesn't mean you should spoil him." Recovery Girl sternly added. "There is nothing I can say to that. Because I wanted to consider his feelings, I hesitated to stop the training match. Even so, will you please not talk about One for All so loudly?" All Might responded, fearing that his secret might be uncovered. "Yes, yes, Mr. Natural-born Hero, Mr. Symbol of Peace." Recovery Girl sarcastically replied, "My injury and this form of mine are common knowledge among the UA teachers and a certain group of pros. But the secret of my quirk, One for All, is known only to you, the principal, my close friends, and young Midoriya." All Might exclaimed, reminding her how his secret is important. "Don't forget the elders," she added, but All Might gave her a glare, showing that she shouldn't have mentioned them in front of Izuku. However, Recovery Girl just scoffed at his reaction. "I know it's not like you want to rest on your laurels at the top, but is being a natural-born hero or the symbol of peace really that important?" she asked, which snapped Izuku out of his earlier gaze and grabbed his attention. "If I no longer am, then the superhuman society will be seized by evil. This is the responsibility of those of us with this power. One for All was created to save people and defeat the villains. It's not your just average quirk." All Might replied with a very serious tone, which contrasts his usual personality. Hearing this, Izuku was once again reminded by the heavy responsibility he shoulders now. However, Izuku couldn't help but feel guilty. "All Might, Recovery Girl, I'm so sorry for holding back during the battle trials. 2 didn't use One for All when I fought Kaken because of a personal grudge. I only used it to show him how much stronger I am. I was so stupid. I don't deserve that power," Izuku said as the guilt sank in. All Might sighed before he put a hand on his shoulder. "You wanted to show yourself that you can beat him even without your borrowed power. That's why I let the match continue. It was something I believed you needed. It's true, you went too far, and using your full power from the very start to show him the difference in your powers should have been enough to teach him his lesson. After all, I do believe that he needed this too. However, we all make mistakes and you're still a hero in training. Not so long ago, you were just a quirkless kid with no power, but things changed now. You don't have 1 quirk, but 2. In a hero comic before the quirk era, there was this famous quote that said, "With great power comes great responsibility." I chose you because I knew that you were selfless, and because I know that you're going to use it to save people. I'm sure you're up to the responsibility. Now don't feel bad. Even I did let my emotions influence my actions in my younger days. Just remember, learn from your mistakes before moving on." All Might gave a few words of advice to the young hero. "You can become a hero. So, I'm giving you this offer. Izuku Midoriya, I want you to be my successor. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. Izuku remembered what he's fighting for again. He remembered his responsibilities, and he remembered why he's here. I promise to use this power for the greater good, and I promise you that I'll become the next symbol of peace. Izuku said with conviction he wasn't going to fail. All Might and Recovery Girl just smiled before Izuku went back to his class and spent a normal school day. Eventually, the school day ended, and everyone started to pack their stuff to go back home. Midoriya, I really have to say you were so manly back then, Kirishima said while Izuku noticed that a lot of his classmates were approaching him. Man, I don't know what you were saying during the match, but you were fired up, he added. I can't believe how you dominated the fight with Bakugo, who was second only to you in the practical exam, Zero exclaimed. You did a good job dodging, Mina shouted with enthusiasm. You guys did that in the first match, so the rest of us had to give it our all, too. Rikido Sato, a giant guy, added. You weren't as elegant as me, but… Aoyama wanted to say something but was cut off. You did a good job dodging, Mina shouted again. Huh. Midoriya was overwhelmed right now. He wasn't used to all of that attention at once.
I'm Eiro Kirishima.
We're all going over the training together right now.
I'm Hanta Zero.
I'm Yuga Aoya. Aoyama was cut off again. I'm Mina Ashido, though you already know my name, Mina said as she winked at Izuku, who immediately blushed and got nervous, knowing what she was referring to.
I'm Tsuyu Osui.
Call me Tsu. I'm Sato. I'm Mineta. Midoriya, if I stick with you, I'm sure I'll be able to get a lot of girls, a short pervert boy yelled as he jumped in the air, but was smacked on the back of his head by Tsuyu's tongue.
I'm Yuga Aoyama.
Aoyama was finally able to say something without being cut off. The various students of Class 1A introduced themselves, and Izuku tried his best to give them his attention, but couldn't help himself and looked over Bakugo's empty desk. He immediately realized that he already left the classroom, so he decided to go after him and ran off, much to the students' surprise. Hey, you tricked me, didn't you? Was it fun tricking me all this time? Huh, you've got a flashy quirk there, don't you? Awakened it a year ago. Yeah, right. You think I'm a fool to believe this bullshit? Come out and face me. Izuku remembered Bakugo's words during the battle as he was running through the hallways, heading to the school building's exit. Kaken, Izuku called his best friend, who was a few feet away. Bakugo stopped for a moment, before turning back to look at Izuku with an angry glare. What? Are you here to boast your victory in my face? How much more do you intend to humiliate me? You're getting back at me for all the trauma I put you through, isn't it? Bakugo violently answered. No, that's not it, Kaken. I just want you to know that I didn't trick you at all. Tu really did get my quirk last year. And what I did today, during the battle, wasn't to get back at you for bullying me. I did this for the both of us. Tu really wanted to surpass you, and prove to you that I'm not that weak and frail boy who you used to bully, and that I don't see myself beneath you anymore. Izuku shot back, explaining his motives for holding back. Hearing this, Bakugo gritted his teeth in anger. And to show me that I'm not the best like I thought. I already know that, you damn nerd. Whether your quirk manifested last year or not, I lost to you today. That's all it was. That's all. Bakugo said, with frustration, as he started to remember Todoroki's performance. As I watched the ice guy, I thought, I can't beat him. It is foolish to launch a large-scale attack indoors. Bakugo remembered Momo's comment. Damn it. I ended up agreeing with what that ponytail girl said. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Hey, you 2DEKU. From now on, we're equals. Bakugo remembered Izuku's words, the words that were forever engraved in his mind. I'm just getting started. You hear me? From now on, UURE. He trailed off as his next words felt bitter on his tongue. YYOURE, my rival, and I'm going to destroy you. You hear me? Here. I will become number one. I'll even surpass All Might. You won't beat me again, bastard. Bakugo yelled. His eyes were teary as his pride took a huge blow. It was the first time that Bakugo had to admit that he's not the best, and he learned it the hard way. Not wanting to waste his time here anymore, he decided to leave. Izuku was shocked as every word registered in his mind. Kaken acknowledged me. He's really changing. He finally acknowledged me, the Deku, and I won't lose either. Kaken, Izuku shouted back. He was happy that Bakugo was starting to change a bit and finally see him as his equal. He was happy that Bakugo can really become the amazing hero and person he always believed he could be. It meant that Izuku never wasted his time chasing him. It meant that he truly had the power to save people even from themselves and inspire them, just like All Might said. Izuku then went back to the school building, where he found All Might waiting for him at the entrance. I was worried that you were going to tell young Bakugo the secret of One for All. Here I thought that maybe you saw as having One for All gave you an unfair advantage given that you have an inferiority complex. But it appears to me that I was worried about nothing. Of course not, All Might. I know that it's a big secret, not to mention I defeated him without using One for All, so technically I won with my own power. Izuku responded. I thought that he needed me to counsel him, but it seems like he's all better now. And yes, you did. But I believe we both agreed not to do that again. Yes, I didn't forget. I was just saying that there was no reason to tell him about the secret of One for All. I also agree that fighting him and winning without using my full power was pretty harsh too. But in the end, he took it very well. I think, not to mention, he's finally seeing me as an equal. Izuku replied. I mean, his main plan after all was to knock Bakugo off his ego and help him become a better person. Normally, any person would have used this opportunity to take revenge or something, but Izuku was different. He always wished the best for everyone. His kind heart is one of the main reasons why All Might chose him as his successor. It's a good thing that you're rivals now. Young Bakugo's fuses has been lit. I'm confident that both of you will push each other to the top. All Might said with a smile, and Izuku couldn't help but sweat drop at how optimistic his mentor was. After all, Bakugo only recognized Izuku as a bigger obstacle in his way to reach the top. But who knows? Maybe he'll change one day. We'll just have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Mina, Momo, Ochako, and Tsuyu watched the heated discussion between their classmates from their homeroom's window. What was that? Mina asked. The fated battle between men. Ochako replied. It seems like we won't see the end of their battle soon enough. Momo added. The fated battle between men. Ochako repeated. The next day, Izuku was going to UA as this was his third day. However, he was blocked by a mass of media standing in front of the gates. Hey you, how are All Might's classes? 2M from the General Studies course. Izuku quickly replied to avoid the mass. Hey, we don't need that one, let's find another student. The news reporter said, before she saw Ochako walking up to the school's entrance. Phew, that was easy, Izuku thought as he passed the front entrance. The entire news report media immediately ran towards Ochako to ask her questions. Will you tell us what the symbol of peace is like as a teacher? Ochako was a little taken aback by the question. What he's like? He's very muscular, Ochako exclaimed as she flexed both her arms, doing her best imitation of All Might. They then saw Tenya walking to the school's entrance, and they immediately ran up to him to ask some questions. What do you think of All Might as a teacher? He made me recognize anew that I attend an educational institution that is the best of the best. Of course, his dignity and character go without saying, but we students are constantly able to see his humorous side. It is a unique opportunity to learn about being a top hero directly from one, Tenya said with his usual serious and dramatic fashion. This caused the reporters to get bored as they didn't expect a teenager to be so earnest about having All Might as a teacher. They thought he would be more typical about, but they were dead wrong as there is nothing typical about Tenya Ida. Excuse me, can you tell me about All Mayo? You're the one who was caught by the sludge villain, the reporter said when they recognized Bakugo, which made Bakugo angry, since he always gets irritated by this subject. Fuck off, Bakugo growled as he walked past the front entrance. About All Might, wow, you're scruffy. What's your deal? The female news reporter asked Aizawa. He's not on duty today. You are disturbing the classes. Please leave, Aizawa said as he turned around and went through the front entrance. Wait, I would like to speak directly with All Might. Aizawa sighed and shook his head as he kept walking. I can't believe All Might was able to work as a hero with all this, the man said in deadpan voice. The news reporter began to get a little frustrated. Hey, just a little time is fine, she said before she began to attempt to walk past the front entrance, but abruptly stopped when a buzzer went off and metal gates were activated as they came down to block the front entrance. What the? It's the UA barrier. If someone tries to get in without a student ID or a pass to enter, the security system kicks in. Apparently, there are sensors all over the school. What the heck? They think they're so high and mighty. They could at least give a brief comment. Seriously, we've been here for 2 days, and they still won't say anything. The news that All Might had been hired as a teacher at UA surprised the nation, and the media descended on the school and caused a commotion for days. Everyone knew about it. Far behind the media and news reporters, a mysterious figure could be seen standing ominously, but that man wasn't a random bystander. Good work on yesterday's combat training, Aizawa stated as Class 1A was seated and ready to begin class. He looked towards Bakugo and said, "Bakugo, you're talented, so don't act like a kid." "I know," Bakugo responded. And Midoriya. Izuku looked up at Aizawa and paid close attention as he heard his name. "Good job on finding a way to control your quirk, but don't hold back again. I don't like to repeat myself, but this is just a reminder." Izuku smiled as he understood what his teacher was saying. "Yes, sir." Aizawa then turned his attention towards the whole class. "Now let's get down to homeroom business. Sorry about the late notice, but today, I'll have you." The students began anticipating on what their teacher was about to say next. "Take another special test." The whole class thought. "Decide on a class representative." It's actually a normal school activity, the class thought in relief. However, everyone in the class quickly started to raise their hands and shout, as they wanted the position. "Silence, please." Everybody immediately calmed down as soon as they heard Tenya yell, so that he could have their attention. It's a job with the serious responsibility of leading others. It is not a job for just anyone who wants to do it. It is a calling that requires the trust of those around you. If we want to use democracy to decide on a true leader, then we should hold an election to choose one. Your hand is raised the highest. Class 1A responded as Tenya stood there with his hand raised up high, showing that he too wanted to be class rep. "Why did you suggest that?" Kaminari asked in confusion. "We have not known each other for that long, so how can we have trust or anything?" Tsuyu asked. "If that's the case, and everyone votes for themselves," Kirishima began to say. "Don't you think that is precisely why whoever receives multiple votes here can be truly considered the most suitable person? What do you think, Aizawa-sensei?" Tenya asked. "I don't care, as long as you decide before homeroom is over." Aizawa responded as he fell down to the floor in his yellow sleeping bag to prepare for a nap. "That man is such a mood," Izuku said in his head with a chuckle. "Thank you very much," Tenya responded. A couple of minutes later, election results. Izuku Midoriya 4 votes. Momo Yaoyorozu 3 votes. "What? I got 4 votes. Where the hell did those come from?" Izuku yelled out in shock, as he didn't expect to get so many votes. "Why DEKU? Who voted for the damn nerd?" Bakugo yelled in rage as he jumped out of his seat. "Well, it's better than voting for you," Shiro commented with a grin. "What did you say?" Meanwhile, Achiko was whistling innocently and nonchalantly as she looked the other way, trying to look as normal as possible. "I give up. I give up. 0 votes. I knew that would happen. That is only to be expected of a person's calling," Tenya said as he was filled with an aura of misery. "You voted for someone else, huh?" Momo said in a sympathetic tone. "But you wanted to do it, too. What are you trying to do, Ida?" Sato asked as he couldn't get why Ida didn't vote for himself. "Then, the class rep is Midoriya, and the deputy class rep will be Yaoyorozu," Aizawa stated in his bored and monotone voice as the two stood in front of the class. "Everyone, thank you for choosing me. To promise you all that I'll do my best," Izuku said as he smiled sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head. He was a little nervous about fitting the criteria for class rep. "Hey, you know what? This might not be too bad," Tsuyu commented. "After all said and done, Midoriya can be pretty fired up anyway. And Yaoyorozu was cool when we were going over the battle results." Kirishima stated, as he also liked the idea of having Izuku as their class rep. Lunchtime. Wow, there are a lot of people today too, Achiko said as the entire cafeteria was packed full of students as there was a lot of noise and activity going on. That's because everyone in the hero course, support course, and management course meets in the same place. Tenya replied, I wonder who voted for me? Izuku questioned himself. I did. Your courage and judgment at critical moments make you worth following. Out of all of us, you're the one who probably has the most heroic spirit. That's why I voted for you, Tenya said before he took another spoonful of his food. It was you? Izuku asked in shock. Me too, Achiko stated. Me three, Ojiro said, as sat down next to Izuku. Wait a second. So, you all voted for me? Who else did? Izuku asked. He was surprised that so many people voted for him. I did, Kirishima replied as he sat on the same table with them. Kirishima also voted for Midoriya? Then that just means that Izuku also didn't vote for himself. Tenya thought, before attempting to ask Izuku about the matter, only to be interrupted by Achiko. But didn't you want to be class rep too, Ida? I mean, you've got glasses and everything. Achiko said bluntly and outright. Uraraka just talks without thinking, Izuku thought with a sweat drop. Tenya took a sip of his orange juice. Wanting to do it and being suitable for it are different issues. I merely did what I judged to be correct. Merely? You don't usually use that word, Izuku said in confusion. Oh, that's... Tenya mumbled. I've been thinking, are you a rich boy, Ida? Achiko asked in curiosity. Rich? I tried to change how I talk because I didn't want to be called that, Tenya said. He was taken aback as his little secret was exposed. Izuku, Achiko, Ojiro, and Kirishima stared at him, urging and pleading for him to go on and explain. Tenya sighed before saying, Yes, my family has been heroes for generations. I'm the second son. What? Wow, the four of them exclaimed. Do you know the turbo hero, Ingenium? Ida asked. Of course. He's a really popular hero who has 65 sidekicks working at his Tokyo agency, Izuku stated, going into fanboy mode. Wait, don't tell me, Tenya smirked as he stood. He is my elder brother, Tenya said with pride. He's telling us straight out. That's amazing, Izuku shouted, still in his fanboy mode. He is a likable hero who honors the rules and leads people. I set my sights on being a hero because I want to be like my brother. However, I think it is still too soon for me to lead others. Unlike me, Midoriya realized the point of the practical portion of the entrance exam, so he's more suitable for the job. Tenya pointed out. This might be the first time I've seen you smile, Ida, Achiko said. What, really? I smile, Tenya said as he was surprised that Achiko would even say something like that. Izuku smiled and thought to himself, Ingenium is to Ida what All Might is to me. But I should tell him, by the way, Ojiro, what did you mean when you said that Midoriya is your rival? Kirishima asked, and both Ochako and Tenya got interested in the topic too. Oh, that. Well, you see, before the entrance exam, Midoriya and I trained together at a Muay Thai dojo and we would spar almost every day. Our sensei also put us through a lot of training in order to show us the spirit of youth, Ojiro excitedly said as he reminisced the past. That's why Deku fights like a martial artist, Ochako shouted excitedly, as she finally figured out why Izuku was so good at hand-to-hand combat. That's so manly, and your sensei sounds even manlier, Kirishima added as he thought how cool his two classmates were. I see, as expected of both of you. I'm sure that you two went through rigorous training to reach your current level, Tenya commented. Izuku then felt two hands going over his eyes, hiding them before a familiar voice said, Yes, he's also a master in Taekwondo, and I believe I told you before, Ojiro. Stop imitating Grandpa. Izuku immediately turned around as he and Ojiro yelled in shock, Itsuka! Both teens were gobsmacked. They never imagined seeing her in UA. Hello, Izuku. It's been a long time, she greeted the Sharingan user. What are you doing here? Izuku asked. What do you mean? I'm here to become a hero just like you, Itsuka replied, stating the obvious. But you never told us, Ojiro commented, voicing Izuku thought. "I wanted to surprise you guys." She replied, "I still can't believe this. We all made it to UA." Izuku exclaimed as he was happy to know that his two best friends were in UA with him. "You're him, the one who defeated the zero-pointer with one punch," a black hair girl calmly said. That young girl had shoulder-length, bob-shaped hair, side-swept to her right with some shorter strands hanging above her eyes. She had fair skin, an athletic build, cerulean eyes, and wearing a neutral expression on her face. "Wait a second. Izuku is the one you told us about, the one who destroyed the zero-pointer with one punch," Asuka cried out in shock. She never thought that her shy and timid friend would be the same person who accomplished such a feat, not to mention, the last time she saw him, he was just a cinnamon roll. She had no idea how much Izuku changed, both physically and mentally. "Yes," Achiko began. "He did it to save me. He was so cool. You should have seen him. He appeared out of nowhere and jumped 25 meters in the air, and then punched the robot, completely destroying his head." Achiko mimicked Izuku, while the black hair girl nodded, confirming her story. "Guys," Izuku blushed. He usually got embarrassed when people praised his achievements. "So, that's how you got first place." Asuka nodded, happy with her deduction. "I was so surprised when I got a glimpse of your name at the top of the leaderboards." Yes, Midoriya is truly a model example to what a pro hero should be. After all, he realized the secret component to the exam. Tenya added, "He's so manly." Kirishima shouted, and Itsuka noticed that they had their own tetsu. "Guys," Izuku repeated, "but where were you guys since the start of year? I didn't see you during the orientations." Isuka asked. "We skipped it. Aizawa-sensei made us do a quirk apprehension test." Ojiro responded. "Really?" Itsuka questioned, wanting to know more about Class 1A's teacher. "Yes, and he threatened to expel anyone who came in last place." "But Midoriya was so manly," Kirishima commented, and Izuku's sweat dropped as he knew what was coming next. Tenya adjusted his glasses before he began to speak. "Yes, you see, Aizawa-sensei thought that Izuku may be holding back or something. So Midoriya decided to show him his true power in the ball throw test. His throw literally broke the sound barrier and knocked us all off our feet. He threw the ball over 1 kilometer. Tenya explained while Achiko mimicked everything Izuku did at the time. Over 1 kilometer? Both Itsuka and the other girl were awestruck to hear this. Their eyes widened before drifting to Izuku, who had hidden his head between his arms not so long ago. "Is that true?" Isuka asked. "I think that this is what happened. But can we get to know each other first?" he asked as he looked at the black hair girl. "Oh right, who are you guys?" Tenya asked, now curious by the identity of the two girls. "You're asking now, Ida?" Izuku sarcastically thought with a flat expression. "Ida Uraraka, Kirishima. This is Itsuka Kendo. She's my friend. She's also the granddaughter of my Muay Thai sensei, and she used to spar with Ojiro and me." Izuku introduced the orange-haired teen girl. "Itsuka, this is Achiko Uraraka, Tenya Ida and Ijiro Kirishima. They're my classmates." "That's manly. You guys must have trained a lot together," Kirishima added as he thought how cool it was for the 3 martial artists to have trained together. "This is Yui Kodai. She's my classmate. We're both in Class 1B. Itsuka finally introduced the other girl. "Nice to meet you, Kodai," they all said. Itsuka noted throughout the conversation how Yui's usual neutral expression changed when she heard about Izuku's achievements. "I guess even she can show emotions and different expressions too," Itsuka thought. "So, who did your sensei expel?" Itsuka asked, feeling sorry for whoever who got expelled. "No one," they all replied. "Wait, what?" He said it was a logical ruse to make us draw out the upper limits of our quirks. Tenya replied. Feeling that lunchtime was almost over, Itsuka decided to say goodbye to Izuku and Ojiro. "Congratulations on getting the number 1 spot, Izuku. You really did what you said you would do." "Thank you," Izuku began, but was cut off by the sound of an alarm. "There has been a level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate outdoors promptly." "What's a level 3 security?" Tenya asked an upperclassman. "It means someone is trespassing on school grounds. I've never seen anything like this in the 3 years I've been here," You should hurry too, he said before he ran out of his chair to evacuate. What happened afterwards was pure havoc as everyone tried to evacuate at the same time in a rush in complete disorder. Everybody was squished up together and there was barely any breathing room. It was quite the uncomfortable predicament. Ow! Achiko and Itsuka both shouted as they got squeezed in the crowd. Itsuka, Uraraka, jittery so quick that it's causing a panic, Izuku said in a strained voice as he too was in an uncomfortable position. He was also worried about his friends. I'll have to activate my Sharingan to find them. Izuku activated his Sharingan, trying to locate his friends, but then saw from the window that it was just the press and trespassing media. It seems like no one else knows who's trespassing, Izuku said, before locating Achiko and trying to reach her, as he had a plan. Uraraka, make me float, Izuku shouted as he was squeezing himself to get to Achiko, until the latter activated her quirk on him, and Izuku started to float in the air. Everyone, calm down. It is just the media and press. There is nothing to worry about. The teachers got the situation under control. There is nothing to fear. This is UA for crying out loud, Izuku yelled. Every student quieted down and sighed in relief, as they heard police sirens which signified that the media would be gone in a few minutes. Meanwhile, at UA's front entrance, four figures could be seen standing near the front entrance, one of them being Recovery Girl and two other teachers at UA. The one in front of the three of them resembled a mouse as he saw what was in front of him, which confused him greatly. How were the ordinary members of the press able to do something like this? Someone instigated this. Did someone evil slip in? Or was it intended to be a declaration of war? The reason that he said this was because the metal gate that once stood in front of the entrance as a form of security was completely destroyed and reduced to dust. Only bits and pieces remained. They had no idea who did this, and they had no idea what was their motive. Unfortunately, they were about to find out pretty soon, and not in the way they hoped they would. The next day, All Might was saving people as he was heading to UA. He couldn't help saving people when he knew they were in danger. It'll be bad if I'm late, but All Might jumped high in the air in pursuit of a car.
If I gotten slower?
After I gave young Midoriya one for all, my powers have been weakening. On top of that, after forcing myself that time, the time I can spend in this form has gotten shorter than before. All Might thought as he caught the car that committed the Hitandron and smashed the engine to prevent it from going anywhere else. Young Midoriya, please think carefully about what it means to have this power. If word gets out, it's clear that the world would be teeming with those trying to steal the power from you. This secret should be kept both to prevent chaos in society and for your sake. All Might said in his head as he thought about the safety of his successor and what dangers bearing one for all would bring to him. Even if he is a suitable vessel, he is still only a 15-year-old boy. I have to pull myself together. Someone's barricaded themselves in the neighboring town. As soon as he heard that, All Might blasted off once again to go resolve the issue. At UA High School, for today's hero basic training, it's turned into a class with 3 instructors, All Might and me, and one more person. Aizawa revealed to the class as they wondered who the third teacher could be. Turned into? I wonder if it is a special case. Izuku thought. Excuse me, what will we be doing? Zero asked. Aizawa held out a card that the word rescue in blue letters printed on it. Disasters, shipwrecks, and everything in between. It's rescue training. Rescue? Looks like it'll be a lot of work this time, too. Kaminari said. Right? Mina agreed with him. Idiot. This is the duty of a hero. My arms are ready to rumble, Kirishima said as he was fired up. No one can beat me in water. Karo. Suyu said as she too anticipated the rescue training. Hey, I'm not done. You can decide if you want to wear your costumes or not this time, because there are probably costumes that limit your abilities too. Aizawa said as he used a remote to make the numbered boxes that contain the students' costumes come out of the wall. The training will take place off campus, so we're taking a bus. That is all. Start getting ready. And with that, the students got up from their chairs and began to prepare to head to rescue training. Rescue training, what I've admired, Izuku thought as he remembered the video of All Might's debut, the one he watched countless times as a kid. He then clenched his right fist. It's training to get another step closer to being the greatest hero. I'll do my best. Chapter 10. The USJ Attack. It's training to get another step closer to being the greatest hero. I'll do my best, Izuku thought as he was currently standing outside the school building, wearing his hero costume. Hey Midoriya, they managed to fix your costume pretty quickly. Good for you. Ojiro exclaimed, happy to know that his friend's hero costume wasn't permanently damaged or anything considering what happened during Izuku's fight with Bakugo. Yes, I have to admit, I was surprised myself to see how fast they managed to fix it. I thought it was going to take them much more time, but I guess it wasn't so damaged after all. Izuku replied, okay, listen here everyone. There's a small change that has been made for today's training. I just got a phone call that All Might is busy with something, so he won't be able to attend the class. That's why we decided to make this a joint rescue training between Class 1A and Class 1B, Aizawa said in his usual monotonic voice, a bit louder so that his students could hear him. Hearing this, the students were surprised as many of them never met Class 1B students. They wondered what caused this sudden change, yet excited to meet the students from 1B. That is right, and here we are. I'm the homeroom teacher of Class 1B Sekjiro Kan, aka the blood hero Vlad King. Vlad King introduced himself as he was exiting the school's building, followed by his students. Vlad King was a very tall, wide-set man of a bulky, muscular build with lightly tanned skin, a few visible scars showing on his left cheek and the left side of his notably thick neck. He had short, pale gray hair which was spiked upwards, away from his face. The only exception to this was the small clump of hair which hangs down over the left of his forehead. His eyes were very small and thin, and he had a wide mouth with two prominent lower canines, which were visible even when his mouth was closed. His hero costume consisted of a dark red skin-tight suit with a very low U-shaped collar, which exposed the middle of his pectoral muscles and was lined with a thick black trim, which matched the ones over his shoulders. He wore white overthenny boots and thick vambraces over his lower arms, a thin wire snaking from one of the two small protrusions on the left one to the back of his neck, and red gloves. Around his waist, he had a three-piece metallic belt which dips downwards in the center, and he wore an orange mask over his eyes. Izuku, Ojiro, Itsuka waved at them as she approached them. Nice costume you got there, Izuku. And Ojiro, you went with your martial arts uniform. She deadpanned once she saw Ojiro's hero costume. Yes, that way. I'm representing the dojo and kendo sensei, he proudly exclaimed. I'm sure Grandpa would appreciate this, but are you sure? Absolutely. This is the least I can do for kendo sensei. Moreover, I have to show everyone the spirit of youth, Ojiro added, hoping to tease Itsuka, but was surprised to hear her laugh instead. I thought you hated when he imitated kendo sensei, so why are you laughing? Izuku questioned as he remembered well how many times Itsuka smacked Ojiro for acting like Daisuke 2.0. It's nothing. It's just that it's really been a long time since the last time the three of us were together. I missed you too, she explained, and both teens blushed, not expecting those words from Itsuka. Yeah, I missed the three of us being together. Anyways, your costume suits you too, Itsuka. It looks good on you, Izuku replied, which made Itsuka the one to blush this time. For her hero costume, Itsuka wore a turquoise knee-length cheapao, over which she had a double-breasted corset, ending just below her breasts. She also sported black short pants under the cheapao. For accessories, she wore a loose brown utility belt around her hips, a satchel attached at the back, a thin black domino mask around her eyes, and white-heeled navy blue boots with wide vamps that reached down to her toes, filled in with white slips. Let's do our best today in the joint training and give it our all, Ojiro added, pumping up his two friends. Huh? Izuku, did you get taller? Itsuka asked as she finally noticed Izuku's new physique. She began comparing her height to his and quickly realized that Izuku grew taller than both her and Ojiro. Oh yeah, I did. I got a growth spurt a few months ago and was pretty surprised to see how much I grew. Must be also thanks to Mori-sensei's stretches. Izuku responded as he started to realize how much taller he has gotten compared to Itsuka. I have to thank All Might too for the diet he gave me during my training. Yeah, I mean you were the shortest one between the three of us. Izuku commented, still shocked by Izuku's new height. My mother said that I might reach my father's height soon. Izuku pointed out before Itsuka noticed something else. Izuku didn't only change physically, but mentally too. The way he talks, the way he stopped the panic yesterday, and how he's easily holding a conversation with them. He was more sociable than before. He really grew up. Huh? Itsuka thought as she stared at him. I wonder how much he has changed. Huh? So, you're the famous Izuku Midoriya, the one who got first place in the practical exam. A voice full of jealousy and in a mocking tone said. Izuku turned around to face the voice's owner, who was a blonde boy from Class 1B. Don't think you're high and mighty just because you got first place? Got it? That said blonde boy added, seemingly out of spite for the Sharingan user. Tenya heard this and immediately approached the boy. What do you mean by this? Midoriya is a very humble and modest person who prioritizes the well-being of others before himself. He has the spirit of a true hero, and that's why he's our class representative. As his friend and classmate, I can't allow you to insult him like that, Tenya sternly said, as he wasn't going to let someone disrespect his friend in front of him. I don't take it well either when people insult my friends, Ojiro added as he too was provoked by what the other blonde student said. Huh? So, you think just because the number 1 student is your class representative? The blonde kid tried to say something, but was cut off by a karate chop from Itsuka. What's wrong with him? Izuku asked, confused by this guy's attitude. If memory serves him right, Izuku was sure that he never offended this guy before, let alone met him. Sorry, that's Nido Monoma, he has a superiority complex, Itsuka said with a sweat drop. However, I didn't know you were the class representative, Izuku. Yeah, well, things happened and before I even knew it, I became the class rep. Izuku replied with a sheepish smile. Amazing! I'm also the class representative of my class, Itsuka excitedly said. She was happy that both her and Izuku were class rep of their own respective classes. Then I guess we both must do our best for our classes, Izuku exclaimed with his normal warm smile. But unbeknown to him, this was going to be the last time he smiles like that for a while. Let's go Class 1A and Class 1B. The buses are here, Vlad King shouted as each class went respectively to their buses. On the bus, I say whatever comes to mind. Midoriya, Tsu began as she turned to look at the green-haired cinnamon roll. Yes, Azui? Call me Tsu. She corrected him, right? My bad. Izuku apologized. Your quirk is like All Might's, Tsu bluntly pointed out, grabbing everyone's attention as silence filled the entire bus. Huh? Why you think so? But I'm, Izuku nervously stuttered as he was mentally panicking. Did she figure out my secret? Wait a sec, Tsu. All Might's eyes don't turn red when he activates his quirk, and he can't copy fighting styles either. The only similarity is the strength boost, Kirishima explained, making his point, which seems to have cleared any suspicions for the moment. Phew! Izuku let out a sigh of relief. He thought that he got caught red-handed for a second there. Then Midoriya, do you have 2 quirks? Momo asked as she too was interested in Izuku's quirk. Ever since UA started and the students got to see Izuku's quirk, they wondered what exactly was his quirk. This attracted the students' attention yet again, especially Todoroki and Bakugo, who silently stared at the Sharingan user. And no, it's only 1 quirk. My quirk is called Sharingan. 2 don't know much about it, but as far as what Recovery Girl said, it's a transformation-type quirk. When I activate it, my eyes change and enable me to read my opponent's movements and increase my perception. I can copy the moves I see, thus making me able to copy my opponent's fighting style. Other than that, it can increase my strength and speed. But if I overdo it, I end up injuring myself. Izuku was nervous once again, but he managed to lie. However, it seems like Todoroki wasn't fully convinced by this. All Might and I need to work on a better lie, Izuku thought. But it's nice to have a quirk that gives you so many abilities. You can do lots of flashy stuff, my hardening strong against others. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like much, Kirishima said as sharp edges appeared on his left arm. Don't say that. I think it's really cool. It's a quirk that can definitely pass as a prose, Izuku reassured his classmate as he truly thought that Kirishima's quirk was pretty amazing. A pros, huh? But you have to think about popularity as a hero too, you know? Kirishima replied with a frown. My naval laser is pro-level in both flashiness and strength. Aoyama proudly pointed out, but it's not great that it gives you a stomachache. Mina said as she giggled at Aoyama's annoyed face. Well, if you're talking about flashy and strong, it's gotta be Todoroki, Midoriya, and Bakugo. Though, huh? Kirishima said. Bakugo is always mad, so he doesn't seem like he'll be popular though. Tsuyu said, which struck a nerve within Katsuki as it caused him to react. What the hell? You wanna fight? Bakugo yelled as he stood up from his seat. See? Tsuyu said as she pointed at Bakugo, who just proved her point. We have not known each other for that long, so it's amazing that everyone already knows his personality is crap steeped in sewage. Kaminari bluntly said. What's with that vocabulary, bastard? I'll kill you. Kaken's being teased. I never thought I would see this day come true. Wow, I guess that's UA for you. Izuku murmured to himself and chuckled. What a vulgar conversation, Momo said as she covered her mouth with her hand. But I like stuff like this too, Achiko replied cheerily. We're here. Stop messing around, Aizawa sternly said as the bus stopped. Yes, sir. When the class got off the bus, they were greeted by an interesting sight. Everyone, I have been waiting for you. Izuku smiled as he immediately went into fanboy mode once he saw who it was. It's the space hero 13, the gentlemanly hero who has rescued tons of people from disasters. Oh, I love 13. She's my idol, Achiko said as she also was excited from seeing one of her favorite pro heroes. 13's costume consisted of a white space suit with a black helmet with white eyes. She also wore a pair of yellow boots. Let's go inside without delay, she exclaimed before turning around and leading them to the facility. Look forward to working with you, the students of Class 1A and 1B said as they made their way inside the facility. When the students entered, they were amazed at what they saw. There were many different areas where different activities of rescue training can be performed. Wow, it looks like Universal Studios Japan. A shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, a windstorm, etc. It is a training ground that I made with different types of accidents and disasters. It's called the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short, 13 said. It really is USJ, Class 1A and 1B thought. Let's see. Before we begin, let me say one thing. Or 2 or 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7. The student's sweat dropped. It's increasing. Everyone, I am sure you are aware of my quirk, black hole. I can suck up anything and turn it to dust, 13 said as she explained her quirk. You've been able to use that quirk to save people from all kinds of disasters, right? Izuku asked. Yes, but it is a power that can easily kill others. Some of you also have quirks like that, right? Izuku looked at his hands as he knew what 13 is referring to. With the power of one for all, I can easily destroy buildings and kill people. So, in order for someone like me to become a hero, I must learn how to use that power to save people and control it. In a superhuman society, personal quirks have been certified and stringently regulated, so that doesn't seem to be a problem at first glance. However, please do not forget that there are many quirks that can easily kill with one wrong step. With Aizawa's and Vlad's physical fitness test, you found out about the possibility of your own hidden powers, and with All Might's persona-person combat training, I think you have experienced the danger of using those powers against others. This class is a fresh start. You shall learn how to use your quirks to save people's lives. You do not have powers so you can harm others. I hope you leave here with the understanding that you have powers in order to help others. That is all. Thank you for listening. 13 finished her speech with a bow. It was now Aizawa's turn to speak. All right then. First, but before he could say anything more, the various lights and electricity went off, and in the middle of the USJ appeared a purple portal that was created by a being who made out of purple mist. Out of the portal came out a man with multiple hands around his body. Aizawa widened his eyes at this. Gather together and don't move. 13. Protect the students. Vlad. Yes, I know. I'll come with you. What's that? Kirishima asked, as it seems like he has noticed something. Out of the portal came more figures, each looking unique thanks to their own personal quirks. Is this like the entrance exam, where the lesson has already started? Kirishima asked again, not fully understanding what was happening. Don't move, Aizawa commanded as he put on his yellow goggles. Those are villains, Vlad King added as he got ready to fight too. Izuku looked at the portal as more villains came out of the purple portal one by one. However, he was beyond shocked by the sight of the two huge villains he saw. They both had their brains exposed, scars all over their bodies, and a mouth that resembled a bird's beak. One of them had black skin while the other one had green skin and wings, and was also a bit shorter than the other one. Izuku then activated his Sharingan, prepared to battle too if needed. But what he saw with his Sharingan made his stomach drop. Something is not right, he thought as his body started to shake in fear. What Izuku saw was that the two huge villains' quirks' energies were a different color than the normal blue. It was purple, and it looked like someone mashed multiple quirks in there, judging by how the energy was being channeled. The whole site looked chaotic, and their energies emitted a strange aura, an ominous aura that struck Izuku's heart with fear. Aizawa-sensei, those two villains in the back are dangerous. They have multiple quirks. To think they are the result of some experiment or something. Izuku panicked as he was confused by how those two villains had multiple quirks. The only quirk capable of being transferred is one for all, so what's going on here? Everyone was horrified when they heard what just came out of Izuku's mouth. Aizawa's and Vlad's eyes widened as they knew that this was going to be a tough fight. 13 Eraserhead and Vlad King. Huh? The teacher's schedule we received the other day said that All Might was supposed to be here, not Vlad King. Kurogiri, a villain made of purple mist, pointed out as he and the rest of the villains wondered where the symbol of peace could be. The trespassing the other day was the work of these scumbags after all. Huh? Aizawa quietly said to Vlad. Where is he? I went through the trouble of bringing this whole crowd to All Might, the symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here. I wonder if he'll come if we kill some kids. Tamura Shigaraki, the one who appears to be the leader, and the same man with the fake hands all around his body, said with absolute malice in his tone as he was annoyed by All Might's absence. Hearing this, Izuku clenched his fists as he started to get angry. What did he say? He will kill everyone here, just because he's annoyed that All Might isn't here. There's no way I will let him hurt my friends, Izuku said in his mind as he activated one for all full cowl at 8%. The scent of ozone quickly filled the air and green lightning began to swirl around him. He was ready to fight those villains and show them the error of their ways. He took one step before Aizawa stopped him. Midoriya, stand back, Aizawa shouted, concerned about Izuku endangering himself. His hair floated up as he undid his scarf, ready to battle. But Aizawa-sensei, there's so many of them, not to mention the two huge villains at the back. And there's only two of you. I can at least take down these goons to make things easier. Please, just let me help you, Izuku replied, worried about his teacher's safety. Midoriya, you're a good kid, getting concerned about your teachers and all. But take a moment and look behind you. Many of your fellow classmates are scared. They need someone like you right now. They need their class representative. Aizawa instructed him. The teacher knew well that when it comes to it, people like Izuku would jump into battle to protect their classmates. Yes, Aizawa-sensei, Izuku responded as he realized that Aizawa was right. One look at his peers' horrified expressions showed him how scared they were. Vlad, let's take care of the villains, Aizawa said in a commanding tone. Wait a second, villains? There's no way they could get into a hero school, Kirishima exclaimed as he couldn't believe that a whole gang of villains showed up in UA. Sensei, what about the trespasser sensors? Momo asked 13 as she thought that the security alarms should have went off. We have them, of course, but 13 trailed off as she too wondered why the alarms hadn't gone off yet. Did they only appear here or around the whole school? Either way, if the sensors are not responding, that means they have someone with a quirk that can do that. An isolated area separated from the main campus during a time when a class is supposed to be here. They might be fools, but they're not dumb. This surprise attack was carefully planned with some sort of goal in mind. Shoto Todoroki pointed out as he intellectually deduced the situation. Izuku nodded his head. Yeah, you're right. They must have stolen a copy of today's class schedule during yesterday's press commotion. Izuku continued Todoroki's deduction. 13. Start the evacuation. Try calling the school. Make sure that they are safe. These villains even had something to counteract the sensors. It's possible someone with radio wave-type powers is interfering, Aizawa said as he turned his head towards Denki. Kaminari, you try contacting the school with your quirk. 2. Aizawa ordered his student before heading off towards the villains with Vlad King. Yes, sir. The blonde boy replied as he placed his hand on a device located near his right ear. I'm leaving the safety of our students to you, 13. Vlad King said as 13 nodded her head. He then jumped down the stairs and thrust himself towards the mob of villains. Shooting squad. Let's go. One villain with holes in his fingertips said as they observed Aizawa and Vlad King descending towards them. Didn't our intel say it would just be 13 and All Might? Who are these two? A female villain with long gray hair floating upwards stated as she and the rest of the goons underestimated the teachers. I don't know, but if they think they can come at us from the font by themselves, then they're idiots. Another villain said as they got ready to kill the teachers. Aizawa responded by activating his quirk as his eyes turned blood red and stared at all the villains in his line of sight. One of the villains tried to shoot from his fingertips but was confused as to why his quirk wasn't working. Huh? My quirk? The bullets won't come out. The other two villains experienced the same as their quirks weren't responding either. Aizawa used this opportunity to grab two of them with his scarf and throw them against each other, effectively knocking them out cold. During that moment, Vlad King used his blood to make a hardened fist and punched the third one, knocking him out cold too. Hero name Vlad King. Quirk, blood control. It allows him to freely manipulate his own blood after it has left his body. He can also solidify the ejected blood, allowing him to trap his opponent. Also, it appears that it allows him to go unaffected by levels of blood loss that would normally be fatal to the average human. Idiot, he's Eraser Head. He can erase quirks just by looking at them. And the other is the blood hero Vlad King. Erase? Are you going to erase the quirks of heteromorphic type villains like us? 2. A large villain with multiple arms around his body said as he charged Aizawa. No, I can't, Aizawa said as he dodged his strike and punched him square in the face. But the skills of guys like you. Aizawa wrapped his scarf around the villain's leg as he dodged another punch from another villain and countered it with a kick, are statistically more likely to manifest in close combat. Aizawa threw the villain that he wrapped around his scarf to Vlad King, who hardened his leg with his blood and kicked him, knocking him into a crowd of goons, taking them all out immediately. So, I've taken measures against that, Aizawa said confidently as he and Vlad King easily manhandled the small fries. He's also strong in hand-to-hand combat, and since he's hiding his eyes with goggles, you can't tell whose quirk he's erasing. When he fights against a group, that makes it harder for them to work together, not to mention getting help from Vlad King is a great asset. They're basically covering for each other's weaknesses, Tamura stated as he watched Aizawa and Vlad King manhandling his goons. I see. I hate pro-heroes. The masses don't stand a chance against them, Tamura said with a hint of annoyance in his voice and scratched his neck. Wow, Aizawa-sensei is even stronger than I thought, and the teamwork between him and Vlad King is incredible, Izuku said with a hint of amazement as he watched both teachers handle the mob of villains. This is no time for analysis. Hurry up and take shelter, Tenya yelled towards Izuku, who nodded and ran back to where the rest of the students were heading. As they neared the exit, a purple mist appeared in front of them as it grew in size. I won't let you, Kurogiri said as he blocked their path. Damn it, I just blinked once and the guy who looks like the most trouble got away, Aizawa thought as he and Vlad King got surrounded by the mob of villains, preventing them to go anywhere else. Nice to meet you. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we have invited ourselves into the home of heroes, UA High School, in order to have All Might, the symbol of peace, take his last breath, Kurogiri said, revealing to them their motive for being here. They want to kill All Might, Izuku thought as his eyes narrowed. As much as it angered him, He wasn't going to let his emotions consume him again. He had to focus. The safety of his classmates was in his hands after all. I believe All Might should have been here. Has there been some kind of change? Well, that is neither here nor there. This is the part 1M to play, Kurogiri said as he prepared to take out 13 and the students. It seems like there's a metal piece floating in this mist guy. It must be his weakness, Izuku thought as he carefully observed the villain with his Sharingan. However, I can't rush in blindly without knowing his quirk. 13 was about to use her black hole quirk, but stopped as out of nowhere. Kirishima, Bakugo, and Tetsu were in front of her as they charged Kurogiri head-on. Bakugo blasted him in the face with a loud explosion. What are those three doing? Izuku said as he wiped the smoke away from his face. Did you consider that you'd got beaten by us before you did it? Kirishima taunted Kurogiri. He thought that the fight was over, but he was dead wrong. It was far from over. Oh dear, that's dangerous. When the smoke completely cleared, Kurogiri was shown to not have a single scratch on him. That's right. Even if you are students, you are excellent golden eggs, Kurogiri said as he praised the young students.
No.
Move away, you three, 13 said as she tried to warn Kirishima, Bakugo, and Tetsu. My job is to scatter you all and torture you to death, Kurogiri yelled as he enveloped the entire class with his purple mist. What's going on? I'm getting sucked in, Izuku yelled as he tried to move, but the mist was just too much. Itsuka began to watch in horror as she saw both Izuku and Ojiro getting involved in that mist. Izuku! Ojiro! She cried out as she outstretched her hand in an attempt to reach them. However, the purple smoke created a portal which forced Izuku to go through it whether he wanted to or not and completely separated him from the group. Itsuka, run! Were Izuku's last words before he completely vanished. Conflagration Zone. The Conflagration Zone is an urban environment located to the southwest and constantly on fire. Tetsu came out of a portal and safely landed after hardening his body with his steel. He was still trying to process everything that just happened. After all, no one expected villains to attack UA. However, the smell of something burning snapped him out of his thoughts. He looked around him and realized where he was. I'm in the Conflagration Zone. Tetsu was a young man with quite long, chin-length, messy gray hair, and black eyes which were tilted dramatically inwards, each lined with a very thick, jagged, tan-colored substance, which were presumably his eyelashes. He doesn't appear to have any notable eyebrows and, like Ijiro Kirishima, he had rows of sharp, pointed teeth. His hero costume consisted of a dark green jumpsuit, cut off just below his chest, with some small, silver-rimmed holes in the lower section of his baggy pants and black boots with metal soles, heels, and front plating. He had steel straps over his shoulders and under his arms, made up of multiple pieces, which connected at a red oval in the center of his chest, with two thinner bands around his biceps and a small plate on either side of his waist. He wore a metal jaw guard around his face, similar to the one Ijiro wears, just thicker and not connected over his nose or around his chin, with the word Fei, which stands for iron in the periodic table, stamped on a plate on each side of his face.
Tetsu.
The steel teen heard his name being called by none other than his classmate, Yui Kodai. Kodai, you're here too, Tetsu exclaimed, surprised to see his classmate here. Yes, it seems like that mist villain scattered us in the different zones here, Yui replied, explaining the situation. I see. Then we must find the others immediately, he said as he was worried about his classmates. Yui nodded as she agreed with him. Yes, we need to find all the students who ended up here with us. And where do you think you're going? A sinister voice said. The two teens looked back and found a group of goons, ready to fight them. Yui noticed that they had fire quirks as one of the villains' hair was on fire, and it made sense to her for villains with fire quirks to be here. Those villains, they knew exactly what was in these facilities before they gathered people. Did they gather intel during yesterday's commotion? Yui murmured to herself as she realized how big of an advantage the villains had. Tetsu, we need to run away. They overwhelm us in numbers and their quirks work best here. Huh? I can't call myself a man if I run away, Tetsu shot back. Hearing this, one of the goons laughed. As if we'll let you escape that easily. Our job here is to kill you, The villain then dashed over the two teens and outstretched his hands to shoot fire at them. "Kodai, stand back," Tetsu said as he stood in front of Yui and covered his body in steel. Once the villain stopped firing, he was surprised to see Tetsu still alive and with no scratch whatsoever. "What the? How?" the villain questioned in shock. "Sorry to break it to you, but your fire is too weak for my steel," Tetsu replied as his eyes showed his resolve to protect his classmate. Name: Tetsu. Quirk: Steel. His body can become like steel. He can become the strongest spear or the strongest shield. Seeing this, Yui quickly came to another realization. If the villains sent someone like Tetsu in the conflagration zone despite his heat resistance, then this could only mean that the villains had no idea about their quirks. If they knew, they would have sent him to the shipwreck zone.
Tetsu.
Change of plans, we're gonna fight them. Our advantage is that they have no idea about our quirks. Yui explained their current situation and Tetsu could only grin as he was ready to teach these assholes the errors of their way. "Out of my way, losers!" Tetsu shouted as he prepared to rush in with everything he had. Despite the villains' attempt to use their fire quirks and burn Tetsu, they couldn't stop him from bulldozing his way like a juggernaut. The man of steel snickered as he took half of them out. Yui opened her pouch and took a circular piece of metal before she threw it at the villains. Once Yui brought her fingertips together, the piece of metal then began to grow in size until it hit the remaining goons, taking them out effectively. Name: Yui Kodai. Quirk: Size. Yui's quirk grants her the ability to alter the size of non-living objects that she has interacted with. It appears to be activated by Yui touching her fingertips together. Her hero costume consisted of a simple red bodysuit with a white collar trim, a matching V pattern running over her chest and around her upper arms, which also included a short white skirt with a red design at the front, dipping so it follows the one in her chest. She wore plain vambraces, as well as a hat which resembled the front of a baseball cap, colored red with white U-shaped lines around the sides, with a metal piece resembling a fin attached at the back of the strap around her head. She had a belt at her waist and straps around her shoulders, what appeared to be an oval-shaped gemstone set between them on her chest, each adorned with a small pouch containing the various nuts, bolts, and all of the other small metal pieces she likes to use with her quirk. "Let's go. We need to get out of here before they wake up again," Yui commented, and Tetsu was about to follow her, until he heard the voice of one of the goons they just defeated. "You think you kids will be able to get away?" he weakly said before he chuckled. "Just wait until our boss, Salamander, finds you. His flames are stronger than any of us, and he'll make sure to burn you all to death." The villain then began laughing with a hint of malice, but Tetsu punched him and put him out of commission. He was tired of his rambling. "Let's go," Tetsu said as he had a bad feeling about this. Meanwhile, Toru was also sent to the conflagration zone. After processing everything that just happened, she decided that it would be best to find a place to hide until all this madness ends. She was too afraid, and things were getting worse by the second. She quickly ran in the streets and took a left after a tall building, but stopped once she spotted a big group of villains. "They're here," she whispered with a hint of panic. However, she calmed down a bit once she remembered that she was invisible and that the villains shouldn't be able to see her. "It appears they're discussing something important," she whispered as she carefully observed them. She couldn't hear exactly what they were saying because of how far she was, but she was hesitant to get closer. "What should I do?" she asked herself. As much as she wanted to help her classmates and be useful, she was also terrified of the villains. She clenched her fists and steeled her resolve. At the very least, she was going to gather information. Toru then approached the group of villains while making sure not to make any noise. Once the distance grew shorter, she was finally able to hear the conversation. "Hey boss, are you sure that this Shigaraki kid would be able to kill All Might? I mean, how can I say this? He doesn't seem to me like a proper leader," one of the villains said, and a few nodded in agreement. "I know," a tall and muscular man replied. Toru noted that he must be the leader of that group and noticed that he had a salamander tattoo on his neck. Not only that, but for some reason he was igniting his right hand's fingers with fire, one after the other. Then why are we here, Salamander? The villain identified as Salamander sighed, and smoke could be seen coming out of his mouth. Because I'm placing my bets on the two monsters. You mean the Nomus? A villain asked. Yes, they are the strongest human weapons ever created. They were created by the King of Underground and Darkness himself. Salamander explained. You don't mean? Yes, they have multiple quirks too. I see. So Shigaraki is just a brat and nothing else. A brat. Salamander scoffed. He's just a rat that he probably found in a dirty alleyway or something. And I think there's also another rat that has been overhearing us for a while now, he said before firing a fireball at Toru. Ha! Toru screamed in panic but managed to dodge the fireball by jumping away. She opened her eyes and tried to get up, but Salamander grabbed her by her throat. Toru then tried to break free of his grip, but her attempts proved to be pointless. We've found our first prey, men, he said before he threw her towards his men. Toru immediately began to cough while holding her sore throat. Tell me, little one, where are your friends? I sent my men over a little while ago and they haven't come back yet, so I assume your friends defeated them. How did you find Madame? Toru asked with a hint of fear in her voice. That's simple. I sensed the amount of oxygen dropping where you were hiding, thanks to my quirk. Now answer my question. Where are your friends? He said with more authority. Tudon KN. She began but was interrupted by a fireball that was fired right next to her. You know what I hate most in this world? It's lying. I know that there's no way a weakling like you could have ever defeated my men. So I'll ask one more time. Where are your friends? He asked with a very cold voice and outstretched his hand, preparing to shoot a fireball and burn Toru to death. Seeing this, Toru began to shake in fear and cry as her life began to flash in front of her. This is it. She was going to die, but she didn't want to die here. She didn't want to die now. I see. Then die. Salamander coldly said with indifference, but instead of aiming at Toru, he aimed at Tetsu, who hardened his body with his steel and tanked the attack. Toru then opened her eyes and saw Tetsu. Then her eyes drifted to a metallic object that slammed into Salamander's head. Ag! He let out a grunt in pain as he stammered. At that moment, a young man with short brown hair, spiked up at odd angles on his head, grabbed her and ran away from Salamander and his mob. Another thing to notice was that the boy's eyes were also oval-shaped, along with his large pupils. Nice job, Tsuburaba, Tetsu praised his classmate. Thanks to Yui's plan, they managed to rescue Toru from danger. Thank you so much for saving me. Toru thanked Cozy Eye as she was grateful to the three of them. Her eyes were still teary and she was still shaking in fear, but she was also relieved now, knowing that she has been saved. I won't let you get away, a villain shouted as he ran behind them, but slammed into an invisible wall. Seeing this, Toru was surprised, until Cozy Eye spoke. That's my quirk. I can solidify air. Finally away from the villains, Cozy Eye put her down. Name, Cozy Eye Tsuburaba. Quirk, solid air. Cozy Eye's quirk allows him to solidify any air he breathes out, allowing him to create invisible walls and/or platforms. The solidified air continues to stay afloat in midair, even if someone is standing on it. The size of the wall or platform depends on his lung capacity. His hero costume consisted of a simple light blue jacket, with pale pants, a black shirt underneath, and he wore large brown boots with cylindrical shapes on the soles. Are you all right? Cozy Eye asked, making sure that Toru wasn't injured or anything. I'm fine. I think I just scraped my knee and bruised my shoulder, she replied as she got hurt when Salamander threw her. Okay, stay here. We're going to take care of them. Out of my way, losers. Tetsu bulldozed his way again and took down a few villains, before Yui took down the rest of them with the last metal pieces she had. It's over now. You lost, so surrender yourself, Yui said to Salamander, who was the last man standing. However, the older man just scoffed. Please, do you really think that you kids have what it takes to defeat me? He then fired 3 fireballs towards Yui, to which the girl barely managed to dodge. Kodai! Tetsu shouted in distress, concerned about her well-being. I'm okay, she said, but gasped as Salamander quickly appeared behind Tetsu and grabbed him by his throat, after he dropped his guard earlier when Salamander shot his fireballs at Yui. Don't struggle if you want to live, brat. And if anyone tries something funny, I'll burn him to death. You coward. Why don't you release him and fight us without using cheap tricks? Kozai shot back in anger. TSK, you kids are really naive to think that a villain will play fair. Fool, didn't you see how my steel completely blocked your pathetic flames? Huh? Tetsu mocked the villain as he still attempted to struggle. I said don't struggle, brat. The villain warned Tetsu as he placed a hand on his forehead and activated his quirk, burning Tetsu's face. You really are an idiot. You don't understand, don't you? Even if your skin is made of metal and protecting you, what would you think would happen to the organs inside if I hold you like that and burn you with the full power of my flames? Yes, they'll melt. So, if you don't want me to roast your brain, stay still. He continued as he raised the temperature of his flames drastically. Tetsu gasped in shock as he did indeed feel the heat reaching his brain. He never imagined that Salamander's flames could get this hot. He must have been holding back earlier. It didn't also help that he was almost out of iron. Tetsu is almost out of iron. After fighting 3 mobs of villains without any rest, he's probably at his limits. At this rate, Tetsu will be burned to death. Yui nervously thought as her neutral expression changed into a horrified one. I can feel it through my flames. They're heavily breathing. They're afraid because his fate is in my hands now. Salamander thought to himself. Salamander then looked at Toru and Kozai and decided to finish them first. He opened his mouth wide open. Salamander breath, he shouted as a big fireball attack started to come out of his mouth. Tetsu didn't care though. He would gladly risk his life if it's to save his friends. He brought his hand to Salamander's mouth and stopped the villain before he could shoot the fireball at Toru and Kozai. Salamander then freed Tetsu's throat from his grasp as he started to cough after the fireball was fired in his own mouth. However, he also started to raise the temperature of his flames in his hand, as he was going to turn Tetsu's brain into a crisp for pulling that stunt. Ah! Tetsu screamed as the heat was unbearable. Instinctively, in the face of death, Tetsu started to use every last bit of iron in his body to harden his forehead, pushing past his limits.
Tetsu.
Both Kozai and Toru cried out. They were concerned about him. Seeing this, Yui began to panic as she didn't know what to do. She didn't have anything to throw at Salamander. However, just then, she got an idea. It's a shame, but it's time for you to die, you shitty brat. Salamander pointed out, finally able to speak again before he got his buy something in the back of his head. It was Yui's hat. Aff, you little bitch, he growled as he finally let go of Tetsu. Tetsu then fell on one knee, breathing heavily as most of his body was no longer hardened by his steel. His head felt terrible as the pain was ringing in his head. He was getting dizzy and he felt like he was going to pass out in any moment now. Tetsu, are you all right? Kozai asked. I'm fine. If I go down after something like this, then I can't call myself a man, he shouted as he stood up again, despite the terrible headache he currently felt. He was ready to attack Salamander. Salamander then began to clap his hands. I commend you for your tenacity, kid. I must say, you've proved yourself to be a real man. But for how long will you be able to keep that form, huh? 2 minutes? 1 minute, Salamander said as he was having fun tormenting the kids who took out his group. Tetsu groaned as his patience grew thin with this guy. Since you're going to die anyway and I feel a little generous, I'll tell you more about my quirk. By creating a spark, I can manipulate the concentration of oxygen in the air. When attacking, I raise the density of the oxygen surrounding my target to a level at which it becomes volatile and creates narrow pathways of oxygen between myself and the victim through which I can direct the ensuing flash fire that blossoms from the spark my body produces. As a result, I can incinerate any number of enemies in the field while deftly avoiding any adjacent allies. The man explained, showing how strong his quirk is. Realizing how dangerous this villain is, Tetsu decided to everything he could to take him down, as he was the only one who had a chance to do so. Now die, kid, the man shouted before he fired a salamander breath at Tetsu, an attack that was strong enough to melt the asphalt. Tetsu was quickly engulfed in the flames as he made no attempt to dodge. He was barely able to stand on his feet after all. Tetsu, they all shouted, thinking that their friend was done for. However, the Man of Steel decided to endure whatever pain he was feeling right now and ran towards Salamander as fast as he can. He wasn't able to harden all of his body, and the pain of his flesh burning was nothing short of painful. But still, he kept moving forward and launched himself towards Salamander. This time, however, he focused his quirk to harden his hand as strong as possible. What? No. This cannot be. The man shouted in panic as Tetsu finally managed to get close to him. Take that, you fucker! Tetsu shouted in rage. His hardened fist made contact with Salamander's face and managed to break a few of Salamander's teeth along with his nose, effectively knocking him out. His face became one ugly mess after that punch. Silence filled the area as the students managed to finally defeat Salamander. Everyone then sighed in relief before Tetsu spoke. We did it! We defeated that bastard! Tetsu collapsed on the ground, unconscious. He was covered in blood and burns. His leg was badly burnt, probably suffering second-degree burns, as well as his right arm. He was severely injured and needed medical attention, but they managed to take out all of the villains in the conflagration zone. Kozai then lifted Tetsu with the help of Yui. Come on, let's go, Kozai said as they headed towards the zone's exit. Mountain zone. Aha! Izuku came out of the portal and fell on the ground. Ouch! That hurt. He stood up and quickly began looking around him. It didn't take him much time to figure out that he landed in the mountain zone. A warp? Is that his quirk? They want to kill All Might? What in the world is going on? Izuku thought, as many questions popped in his head, before getting interrupted by a familiar voice. Midoriya, so you were sent here too? Ojiro said, relieved that he found his friend. Yes, I think that mist villains scattered us into small groups and each group must have landed in one of the rescue zones. We must find the others who were sent here and regroup. Ojiro nodded and the two teens began searching for their classmates. Both of them were anxious about this whole thing and wanted to quickly find them before it's too late. You know, the villains made a great mistake to send us here together, Ojiro pointed out as he cracked his knuckles, ready for some action. He was sure that with him and Izuku they could easily take out the goons. They won't even know what hit them, but we can't underestimate the three villains who were at the center plaza, and more importantly the mist guy too. It seems like he can warp us anywhere. But for now, let's find the others. They're our priority right now, Izuku exclaimed, still worried about the two villains who looked like Frankenstein duplicates more than anything. You're right. Let's go check this way, Ojiro replied as he pointed to the direction where all the noise was coming from. Izuku and Ojiro descended from a cliff and found Momo, Ibra, and Away's fighting villains. Izuku immediately activated one for all full cowl at 8%, along with his Sharingan before he and Ojiro jumped into action. Izuku leaped into the air and flipped forward to deliver an axe kick to the back of a villain's head, knocking him out effectively. Manchester Smash. He was followed by Ojiro, who spun and swung his tail, knocking down another villain, both of them making quite a big entrance. Midoriya, Ojiro, you're both here, Momo said with a hint of relief. She was glad that two of her classmates came to help. Momo's hero costume consisted of a high-collared, sleeveless crimson leotard with silver lines at her waist and around her arms, which was open to expose her skin from her neck to just below her navel. She sported calf-length crimson boots with heels, which dipped sharply down in the center, and two gold utility belts around her waist, another, thinner one around the top portion of her chest, below her shoulders. The design choice allowed her to create items from as many points in her body as possible, as her quirk can only be used if her skin is exposed. I'm glad you guys are okay, Izuku exclaimed, happy to know that his peers were fine. I see. So, that's Midoriya who I've been hearing about, the guy who got first place in the practical exam. Away's figured out who Izuku was as he observed the Sharingan user and analyzed him. Cool. Seems like a badass to me, he added with a smirk. Away's had long black hair, spiked upwards and backward to his left, and rounded gray eyes, tilted inwards. He wore a wide, striped patterned headband around his forehead, pulled down quite low to keep his hair out of his eyes. His hero costume consisted of a burgundy, baggy, full bodysuit, its collar passing his chin. He also wore shoulder pads and a bag on his belt in which he kept various items, including blocks of wood and metal to aid his quirk. "I'm glad that he punished the sinners," Ibera simply replied. Ibera was a girl of medium height with green, thorn-covered vines for hair, one set wrapped around her forehead a couple of times. Because of her quirk, she can grow them at will, but she likes to keep her vines at a reasonably manageable length, just above her waist. Her eyes are squinted and dark green with long lower eyelashes. Her hero costume consisted of a plain white robe and black knee-high boots. "Guys, I know the mist villain's weakness. If we manage to defeat the villains who are here, we'll be able to tell the others about it. Then we can escape and call for support." Izuku told them his next move. The students were all surprised to hear that Izuku has already figured out Kurogiri's weakness. They were definitely impressed by his analytical skills. Also, "Yaoyorozu, can you make me a metallic staff like the one you have?" "Sure," Momo replied, as she proceeded to create a staff out of her arm. "Thanks. I wanted the support department to add one for my hero costume, but I forgot to add it in my application." Izuku took his staff from Momo. "But isn't it too dangerous to fight the villains?" Awais pointed out. He wasn't sure if they had what it takes to beat these villains. After all, they were still freshmen. "Don't worry. These guys won't cause us any trouble. We can take them out. If you don't want to fight, that's okay. I'll protect you. However, I don't think we have a choice anyway. It's either fight or get killed because they won't hesitate to kill you, so we got to protect ourselves." Izuku went over their current situation, making them understand that now wasn't the time to hesitate. But before anyone could add anything, they heard the sound of footsteps coming towards them. "Look over there. There are 5 kids. We can easily kill those 3 boys and have fun with the 2 girls," a villain said, as he had a lewd expression on his face. "Today seems our day. We get to kill All Might and have some fun," the other villain added. Look, that girl with a ponytail in the back. Her body is screaming rape means her hero costume isn't leaving much for imagination," another villain added. He licked his lips, as if he was a predator who has found his prey. The 5 students gave them a look of utter disgust at how disgusting those villains were. "Like I'll let you," Izuku yelled as he jumped and smacked the villain on his head with the staff. He then saw another villain closing in from the corner of his eyes and kicked him in the head without losing his momentum. The other villain, who looked like a crocodile more than a human, tried to close in on Izuku and attack him, but a white blur quickly came in front of him. It was Ojiro who punched the villain in the guts, knocking the air out of his lungs before finishing him with a roundhouse kick, knocking him out. Awais then proceeded to use his quirk to glue the knocked down villains to the ground. "At least this way we'll be sure that they won't fucking move anymore." Name: Yosetsu Awais. Quirk: Weld. He can fuse objects at an atomic level, although he needs to be touching both objects in order to fuse them. His quirk is effective on both organic and inorganic material. A villain with a camouflage quirk tried to sneak up on Ojiro, but was immediately wrapped up in Ibera's vines. She then used her vines to slam him into another villain. Name: Ibera Shiozaki. Quirk: Vines. Ibera's quirk gives her hair-like vines that grow on her head. She can lengthen and manipulate the vines, allowing her to attack, defend, and grapple. She also can detach them at will. The vines will grow back, provided her head receives proper sunlight and water. Honestly, with Izuku and Ojiro at the front, Awais gluing the villains together, immobilizing them, and Ibera and Momo providing support with Momo's cannon and Ibera's vines, they made quick work of the villains. "Midoriya, you were right. These villains are just fucking minions. We totally kicked their asses," Awais excitedly shouted, much to the girl's annoyance at his vulgar language. However, there was still a villain left, one who had a lightning-type quirk. He was hiding, waiting for the moment they would drop their guard. And once they defeated his comrades, he made himself known and appeared from behind Izuku, hoping to take him hostage. Midoriya watched the 4 students try to warn Izuku, but they were cut off once Izuku hit the villain in his stomach with his staff, then straight in the face without turning back to face him, knocking him out easily. His skills at fighting with a staff are even more incredible than mine. Momo thought, clearly in awe at Izuku's skills. Holy shit, Midoriya. How did you do that? You were like that guy Goku from Dragon Ball when he unlocked Ultra Instinct. It was fucking amazing, Awaze excitedly said. He, too, was impressed by Izuku's display of strength, as it was nothing short of amazing. Well, I just trained at a weapon arts dojo and my sensei didn't go easy on me, Izuku said and smiled sheepishly. He remembered those times Kurigane would smack him with a staff on his head while he was wearing a blindfold. Despite his sadistic ways, it really did benefit him, as not only can he react to the attacks he can see, but also to the ones he cannot see. Everyone, let's go now to the USJ entrance to help the others defeat that mist villain, Momo said, now that they have defeated all the villains in the mountain zone. Wait, I want to go to the central plaza first. I want to check if our teachers are okay, Izuku objected. He was worried ever since he saw those two villains' quirk's energies, and something was telling him that his teachers might be in trouble. All Might had told him that maybe his energy became cyan because One for All evolved or something, and had finally settled in his body. However, it seemed like his theory wasn't completely true, given that there were other reasons for a quirk energy to change colors. But Midoriya, the main villains, are there. They are not like these minions. We'll be getting ourselves in danger and possibly killed. Let's leave it to the pros and focus on saving our classmates, Ojiro interjected, trying to reason with his friend. Sure, he felt confident defeating any of those small fries any day, but the villains at the plaza were on a whole other level. One that UA can't prepare you to face in a single week. Heck, even Izuku said earlier not to engage them, so what was he thinking now? He's right, our teachers will punish the sinners. It's dangerous for us to go. Ibara agreed with Ojiro. I know, but there are two villains who have multiple quirks there. Something is fishy, and I think it's bigger than either of our teachers. I mean, think about it, they want to kill All Might. Surely, they didn't plan an attack like this just to lose to a bunch of students and two pro heroes, Izuku argued, worried about how strong those monsters could be. And besides, I'm sure our classmates can easily take on these goons too. The real danger is out there and we're close to them. We can reach them. We can go and see how they're doing, but we can't intervene, Momo replied, thinking that a little look won't do them any harm. However, she would soon realize that this was a big mistake. Well, if you put it that way, I guess we can, Awaze nervously replied, still hesitant about this whole thing. In the end, everyone agreed and Izuku was glad that he'll get the chance to check on his teachers.
Central Plaza.
When Izuku and his friends arrived, they discovered that Izuku's deduction was unfortunately on the spot. Vlad King was lying in a pool of his blood, unconscious, while Aizawa was yelling in pain as his right shoulder was being dislocated by the big black monster. Seeing this, the students felt shivers being sent down their spines. They were consumed by their fear. Izuku tightened his fists in anger. He wanted to go save his teachers, but he couldn't risk endangering his friends. Pissed him off seeing how useless he was right now. He looked at them and it was obvious that they were terrified. In the end, he decided to keep hiding with them and not blow their cover. However, much to their surprise, the purple mist villain, Kurogiri, suddenly appeared besides Tamura. Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogiri called, getting said man's attention. Kurogiri, did you kill 13? I put 13 out of action, but there were students that I was unable to disperse, and one of them was able to run away, Kurogiri pointed out, referring to Tenya, who was able to escape the USJ and call for help from the pros. Ha! Tamura began to angrily scratch his neck. Kurogiri, if you weren't a warp gate and our ride out of here, I would have crushed you to pieces, Tamura said with a hint of anger. He was pissed off as he realized that the pros were soon coming for backup. It just made their situation a lot more complicated. The hiding students, however, were happy to hear this. This means that backup is on their way, Izuku happily thought, as now the situation has turned to their favor. There was still hope. Tamura sighed as he stopped scratching his neck. We can't win against dozens of pros. It is game over. Let's go home. Wow. Our classmates were really able to defeat that mist villain and call for backup, Momo commented, happy to know that she has such powerful classmates. Did he say they're going home? Is this really the end? Awais asked, hoping for the best. That's what I heard them saying. Ibra replied as everyone was starting to relax and smile, now that the villains were leaving. Izuku, however, didn't buy it. Izuku felt that something was fishy, so he kept his Sharingan activated just in case. After all of this, they're going home? Just like that? No, something's wrong, Izuku thought. Shigaraki turned his head a little. Oh yeah, before we leave, let's smash some of his pride. In the blink of an eye, Tamura ran towards the 5 hiding students at transonic speeds, with his hand aimed straight for Momo's face. Izuku could only watch this in fear, as he was only able to track Shigaraki's speed thanks to his Sharingan. However, he had no idea if he was going to reach Momo before Shigaraki does. As the symbol of peace, Shigaraki continued with pure malice in his voice. Music, My Hero Academia OST, just another hero. However, as he was stretching his arm to decay Momo's face, Izuku appeared in a flash. Detroit Smash! Izuku shouted before punching Tamura right in the face, sending him flying a couple of meters away. Shigaraki didn't even know what hit him, and soon he hit the ground head first with a loud thud and lost consciousness. Shigaraki! Kurogiri called out his master's name. Seeing their collapsed master's form, the monster duo went to check on him and totally ignored the kids. Speaking of them, the other 4 students were all stunned by Izuku's speed. None of them were able to see him moving. However, once they snapped out of their gaze, they realized what kind of trouble they were in now. Their presence was made known, and there was no telling what was going to happen to them now. Izuku felt a little pain in his hand, the same one he used to punch Shigaraki. I lost control and went to 15% for a second there, but if I hadn't done that, he would have probably hurt Momo. Izuku then looked and noticed that the 2 huge villains were going towards their unconscious master. This is our chance. He looked at his panicked friends. They were too terrified to even move. Think, Izuku. Think, what should I do now? What would All Might do? He said in his head, but quickly got his answer. Izuku stood tall in front of his classmates, shielding them. Everything is fine now. Why? Because I'm here, Izuku said with a smile, trying his best to imitate his mentor. This immediately succeeded in calming down his friends and reassuring them that everything was going to be all right. Everyone, let's go save Aizawa-sensei and Vlad-sensei and get out of here, Izuku shouted as his eyes were burning with determination. His intimidating Sharingan was doing an excellent job showing his conviction and sheer will, as well as freeze Kurogiri in his place, who was already panicking as he had no idea what to do now. However, they didn't know that the battle had just started. That was insane, wasn't it? Legends? Deku's Sharingan journey just keeps getting better, and we're only getting started. Your support means the world to me, so don't forget to hit that like button. We're aiming for 150 likes to drop the next part. Leave your wildest theories in the comments, and make sure you subscribe to stay in the loop. Massive thanks again to Mr. Author 18 for their storytelling genius. Go support them, stay legendary, and I'll see you all in the next one.